Go.
You good to bring us in, Hassa?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, my cat has emerged.
Okay, you can go live.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Virtual Belcar for another season of racing here. We're at the opening round. We're at Sebring. For anyone who isn't grown tired of racing at this track just yet, we've got a fabulous 3 hours of racing coming up here. As I said, the opening round of a brand new season, the season 2023 of the Virtual Belcar series. My name is Hasse Reutmer, joined by the brilliant Edward May here in the comms booth. And we are excited to get the go showing. I was about to say, Edward, the show going indeed.
Yes, exactly. And quite a historic moment in the Virtual Belcar. The first time ever that these drivers will have raced around this historic all-American motorsport venue. It's a brilliant track for multi-class endurance racing, as has been seen most recently, actually, with the Sebring 12 Hours, the 1,000 kilometers of Sebring as well. And World Endurance Championships providing some excellent entertainment, and I'm fairly certain that Virtual Belcar will follow in those footsteps because, well, it always has done, hasn't it, Hassa? I mean, it doesn't feel like too long ago we were commentating on the 24 Hours of Zolder, the season finale last season, and I mean, what a race that was to cap off the season. And by the looks of things, as we come into qualifying, we're in for a real treat because you can see now that pole position is separated by less than 1/10 of a second in both the BLC1 and BLC2 classes. BLC3 is close as well, with just 1.5 tenths separating first from second there, as we just see Goose Franken have a little bit of a moment coming in towards the Le Mans section there on just what was going to be a decent push lap through in qualifying. Again, all the cars out on track at the same moment, so track position and timing is key for these drivers. They have plenty of time, as you can see, 30 minutes, but that is gradually ticking down, and now they only really have 1 minute to go to put those laps on the board.
And at plenty of time, you say, in half an hour, but that half an hour will run away quicker than the road runner can say meep meep and get its legs going. And especially if you find yourself wasting a few laps in traffic, getting a few laps, maybe that great lap of yours will have been hampered by an off-track or something like that. It is the final moments of qualifying, and it's the final chances for everyone, basically, to just prove that they have exactly what it takes. Christophe Herbigneux here, who is leading these newcomers, I think they are, to the series. The Bootsen VDS by Undercut Red in BLC1 here. The current pole setters, Edward. A very fine job they've done so far. Valkyrie eSports, of course. We know these lads. It's Jonathan Poulet. He's going to get his lap hampered here. It's going to be no better than second for them. Robert Heger here, German driver for Schütz Motorsports. And the 51 Audi, a newcoming car as well. High up on the grid there, you could say. Just about 1/10 off. 159 dead, Edward. Very, very spicy laps coming in qualifying as well. And then, of course, a nice competition. It's called LMDH. They're in a GT3 indeed. Maybe, actually. Splash over to multi-car team. No, that's not going to do anything for it. Oh, well. I was just going to check if there was any way to make it not say a nice competition. LMDH. Sorry.
BLC2 RPM top of the timing sheets with a 2-minute 1.8, a storming lap through, and it's a good chance to showcase the different classes in this season of the Virtual Belcar. 3 this time around. BLC1, of course, being the GT3 cars, those being the Lamborghini Huracan and the Audi R8. We have BLC2, the cars that we're currently seeing now, the wonderful Porsche Cup car, providing us with so much entertainment, but they're tricky little beasts. No traction control or ABS, all down to the drivers. And then the BLC3 class, yet again, the GT4s. But those, I think, are only just down to 2 different models, I believe. Actually, no, I think there are 3. I think you do have the option of a Porsche. I can't see any out on circuit at the moment. It's just an all-German affair in the BLC3 class because it is the BMWs and Mercedes being the popular choice at the moment.
Indeed, I think the Porsche has been a little bit off for some time in BLC 3. Of course, this season, we don't have the BLC 4 cars. Last season, they were a little bit underpopulated, you could say, with the touring cars. So they have slid out, of course, if the need so jumps up, you could say. They probably could return someday. But for now, I think the 3 classes here is going to be 3 very healthy classes indeed. Going to provide us with some brilliant racing. Edward, just look at the livery on the RPM car. I was going to say it before, and it's one of the most striking Porsche Cup cars I have seen so far. And it's going to be one we're going to be looking forward to, at least me. I am going to be looking forward quite a lot to seeing that car again and again. Here, Team Vision and Jorrit Svinen, who is coming around to complete his in-lap. And the last few cars that are on track are quickly disappearing, you could say. And we will have the race getting underway here in just a few minutes. Of course, it's the full warm-up lap here at Sebring. It's the long... Well, it's not that long. It's not a Nürburgring, but it's a long lap indeed to do before the race. Plenty of time for the drivers to get their nerves on. We'll get the grid on for you, ladies and gents, right about here. A little bit hard to see, I'm afraid, at least on my screen. I don't know if you have some kind of background for this. I don't really. It makes it a little bit hard to see. We'll get this sorted, at least if nothing else, then for the next race, of course. But Bootsen VDS by Undercut is in pole position in the 17 car in BLC1, ahead of Jonathan Poulet and Valkyrie X-Type competition. Then Robert Heger for Schütz and Ricardo Ferreira in the number 1 Anage competition car. They're rounding off row 2. Sim Racing B in the 61 machine, 5th ahead of Simpact Noises in the 13 car. Babo Follen for Sim Formula Europe, they're 7th ahead of Ben Thanes for Viraco Esports White. Matthias Maas for JWS Motorsport, 9th ahead of Hans Blankart. And then Bram Bellemans and Arno van Houten for Brabo and Lexaro Racing there in 11th and 12th. And as we are going to take a scroller down, I wonder where just that have gone. It's a little bit... The OB, not the OBS, but the SDK has changed, Edward. And I'm trying to get the grid to scroll, and it's just not where it usually is. So please do bear with me for a second while I try to figure out where this little button is hiding somewhere. And and it's been a few... Oh, there we go. There we are. Okay. So this should probably help things out a bit. No? How about this? Ah, there we are. That's better. Luckily, we have plenty of time to get through it. My apologies for the slight hiccup there. I have missed you all as well, Thomas. Me and Edward has been dying to get along with the new season here. SimWorld.be Fast is 13th ahead of Navarro de Bover in 14th place. And that leaves us with BLC 2. And I'll leave you with Edward May for that.
Thank you very much, Hasse. Yes, we can see now it is RPM and Vince Peters that put it on pole position. We're ahead of Sam Hausted for Valkyrie X-Type there in 2nd place in BLC2. Then we come down to Senna Lansons for GTE Racing by Zedem, ahead of Benjamin De Papa in ART Sim Racing 2. Kun Klopman in the number 19, that is 5th in class. Number 10 car. I think Kun has actually swapped over from the BLC 3 car, the GT4s, up to the... As all of a sudden they've all vanished and everything suddenly changed. There we go. You can see now divided by class position. Kun Klopman is indeed in 5th position, ahead of Jeremy de Boer, number 7 car for DBR, starting in 6th. Chris Lowers for ART Sim Racing will be in 7th place, ahead of Peter Lemkins in 8th. Then we have Tim de Hunt in 9th, Milan Phaetons, and Glenn Hopkins rounding out the BLC2 class, and then Hassa last but certainly not least take us through the BLC3 class.
With pleasure indeed. Look at this new layout. Very, very good looking with the classes. I really like it. It took me a while to find it, but it's been all worth it there. The 100 Anage competition BMW leading class with Leandro Verle, the Brazilian driver, ahead of Stefan Verhofstadt for Traxxas by JW's Classifications. Then it's Steven De Snyder for SimWorld BE Rapid and Chris van Rucht for BE Sim Racing G. Mathieu Schreuder for Valkyrie X-Type GT4 is ahead of Rune Bobbers for Anage competition L. And then Hans Polmans for Viraco eSports Black. Stefan Lugan for Squadra Veloce by BS. That probably says more than BS, I would imagine, but we'll get to that later. We got Desipit Racing and Pierre-Yves Desaut in 9th place ahead of Dries Moody. Then Glenn Roendelaars for BE Racing S and Jochen Lennertz in the Dynamics Racing 65 machine, rounding off BLC3. Edward Main, with that said, it's about to go racing here in a short moment. We've got the lights on, which means that I don't imagine they'd be going already. That would be very, very early. They're hardly onto the back straight yet. You could say, however, Edward, that a start from coming on to, well, through Le Mans here and onto the back straight, would it be a safer option than waiting? I would tend to think so.
I think it's just all about being aware of where the cars are around you. You need to have your teammates basically talking you through it, through the starting procedure. You also need to be aware of when the car in front is going. Obviously, if you're in the classes further back, you really do need to have someone watching the front of the field just in case there's a checkup or an incident to alert the drivers further back of what's going on, and so they can be aware to take any evasive action they might need to do. Of course, usually we are quite good for clean starts in the virtual Belcar, but this is a new circuit for the drivers. Anything can happen. We will wait for the next few seconds to pass by as the pace car will peel off into the pits now, and then it will be Christophe Herbignaud to set the pace, and he will get away almost immediately. Here we go. We are going racing here for the first time in 2023 for the virtual Belcar. The first round of Sebring is go in towards the first corner. They're going 3 abreast up the inside. There's a late look. Is there contact? Have they managed to get through safely? Oh, there's a little bit of a touch on the exit. Off goes the Valkyrie car, back onto the circuit. Through goes the Arnage competition car up into 3rd place. There's an incident in the background as well as 2 of the Audis have it coming together. And oh my word, all of the BLC3 cars get caught up just as innocent bystanders. There's a huge car park on the run into turn 2. And I wonder who has really lost out most. Ingemar Andersson is the driver that's way, way down the field, dropping 21 places from the beginning. So we need to have a look at the replay to see exactly what happened to the number 14 car. But for the moment, Christophe Herbignaud way out in front. Nice, clean getaway, exactly what he needed. There was a bit of a worrying moment when George was just looking up the inside in towards turn 1. And then, of course, Jonathan Poulet got caught up slightly. But thankfully, most of the cars got through unscathed.
And we'll see just who's there to pick up the pieces there in BLC3. Very, very, very chaotic start. As just what happened there. Well, we're going to have a quick look here, just as the dust will be settling. As Jonathan Poulet is under pressure here from David van Glabeke. The Sim Racing BE by... Oh, it's actually too long for me to even see it. So, it's a trend, Edward, with the very, very long team names indeed. And look at that centipede of cars. Some absolutely beautifully liveried machines racing in this series. Many of them will be familiar to a lot of the viewers from the real-life Belcar series. Some of them, of course, are representative of virtual teams that don't really have any sort of real-life arms, so to say. I would that's not quite what I meant. It just so happens they do have arms, but they don't They don't have real-life racing teams. That was what I meant to say. Anyways, the action is heading up here at the rear end of BLC 1, but at the front, it's kind of tight here as well. In that battle for... what is that, third place?
Yeah, we have several BLC 3 cars into the pits. Hans Pullman's on his way out. Steven Delischneider in the pits as well, with Matthew Schroeder in Ingemar Anderson after the incident at the start. And there's huge damage crabbing all the way down the pit straight. We need to have a look, if we can, at what happened at the start of the race, because obviously they dropped way down through the order. They do have a fast repair, which we just saw the car get fixed up almost immediately. Let's have a little look, Hassa, if you can talk us through what was going on at the start of the race and what might have happened to Ingemar Anderson.
It's a very good question. I was actually just trying to focus on Ingemar's car as he sneaks up the inside. They all somehow make it out of turn 1. And then into turn 2, Christensen, there's a bit of a bump, and then he gets the heavy contact. 1, 2, 3, 4 cars hitting him, and then all chaos. Hell breaking loose in BLC 3. So,
Innocent bystander throughout all of that.
I'm afraid there isn't a whole lot that Ingemar Anderson could have done differently there. The fast repairs will indeed be coming in very handy. Of course, the time it takes to go into the pits and getting it fixed in itself is going to be putting teams in a majorly disadvantageous position. But regardless, they're back out there racing. Here is Decipit. This is the battle for 4th, 5th, and 6th in BLC 3. Some cars very close here indeed. It's all spread out a bit in BLC 2 at the moment. And Vince Peters actually ahead of the... It's a good question if that was netcode. We can have another look at it. Just to see if it's going to make us any wiser here. But let's go on board with Ingemar Anderson. Because the contact did happen right before the Swede. And somehow they make it through turn 1. Then down to Christensen is where it all goes awry. It's a very courageous start, you could say, by Anderson. And let's now see up ahead.
It's just down to a checkup, and I think there's a car that just comes in from behind far too fast. And I'm not sure which car that was involved in the opening lap incident. It was one of the BLC2 cars, but... Yeah. I'm not sure if the stewards are going to have a look at that one or if they're going to be a bit more lenient because it was on the opening lap of a race. Very difficult to see, but of course we will know. We do have live stewarding for all rounds of the virtual Belcar, so we'll be filled in on exactly what happens as the race progresses. But for now, one thing is for certain, and that is that 14 car is way out of sync and way down the pecking order.
Yeah, and they're going to spend a lot of time just overtaking everybody else, basically. What happened to the 777 of Matthew Schroeder? That's a good question. We'll see if we can have a specific look at that situation there. I think the cars... Oh, yeah, he just went tipped. Oh, and that's not helped anyone in BLC 3. Because honestly, Edward, it looks like they were getting along. They were just about to come through there slowly, but safely. But then just a single tire from the 777 onto the grass, and that's yeah,
it was a what we call a Miley Cyrus incident when you just come in like a wrecking ball and just absolutely demolish everyone around you. It's one of those things where as soon as you dip a wheel onto the grass, you are essentially a passenger. You can't slow down. There's no friction on the tires to slow you. You're just going to be barreling straight on. The momentum will carry you into whatever path you're set for. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot that could be done to avoid that once you get out of shape onto the grass. So it's one of those unfortunate incidents, just pushing a little bit too hard on the cold tires at the start of the race. Meanwhile, out in front, Christoph Herbenjo trying to build on the advantage. The lap time is from first and second, very close together. Carlo Ferreira for Onage competition, hanging back for the moment and under a little bit of pressure from the Valkyrie car in behind. These two really at each other's throats for most of last season. Let's look at this. Just a little look up the inside.
This is Vince
Just
Peters,
ahead
Edward.
of Vince Peters. That was, yeah. That's
But he's getting held up here. The 32 BLC2 leader, sort of getting held up by the back markers here.
I think actually from the start of the race, Vince Peters actually was ahead of those two.
Of course.
Just throughout all of the carnage and moments going on, Vince Peters took advantage and now is just slotting in behind those two and hoping that they might be able to give him a little bit of slipstream to mainly break away from Renzo Eulenbroek in behind.
Oh, just coming in too quickly there, and the car not wanting to slow down. Milan Phaetons in the Team Vision car. Rata Racing Honda and Hans Blankart coming in too quickly to Christensen. Oh, that's very close to causing some collateral damage as well. Those the Porsches are indeed Cup cars, Dougman. So BLC2, Porsche Cup. BLC1, of course, the Audi and Lamborghini GT3s. And then BLC3 is the GT4s. So it's all very confusing, but you'll get your head around it eventually. Oh, they all go a little bit wide there. And of course, the incident limits in these races are quite low as well. I recall correctly, Edwards, it's 15 incidents that you can pick up before you're awarded a drive-through on that account. So the drivers are indeed being held to some very, very strict standards. And that's great to see. We have a Norwegian driver in the field as well in the 877 Valkyrie X-Type machine there. That's I will do my best Norwegian. It's Roger Christiansen. Of course, I am not Norwegian myself, but it's a brotherly folk to the Danes. Tim DeHaan, I'm afraid, has had a problem in the number 9 Brab Alpha by time. Wonder. Oh, just gets tagged by the 992 as he has a sketchy exit. And takes to the grass. Not any real damage there, I think, to the car. It looks to be in an okay shape. And then sorry, Edward. I was just going to go on here. BLC 3, Stefan Verhofstadt in a very good position here. I wonder. We're looking down on.
I think Stefan got a lucky break from the opening phase of the race. You can see there's a little bit of damage on the left-hand front of the Mercedes there, but I think it was just a bit of contact, and then he was able to get away clear while all the others sort of checked up against one another. So I think that was a big boon for the number 6 car and allowed him to get out ahead. You can see there Vince Peters trying to break the toe, not giving an easy time of things to Renzo in behind. So what I was about to say is just looking at the timings on the left-hand side, you can see that Valkyrie and Arnage are very close to each other at the front of BLC1. Battle for third place is hotting up just a little bit, but they can't get too caught up in their own fights because there's a big train in behind them.
So here, Dries Moody just squeezing in on past. Gets a little sketchy for the 209 there, I think it was. Thank you, Yo. Much appreciated. And as I said before, it's just grand having you all along as well. We've been really looking forward to this, Edward and I. I haven't been commentating since the 24 hours of Solder, basically. So there's some talking that I haven't done, or some people in my life who's had to lay ear to it. Either or, it's probably for the better that we get the action going here. And as we see the leading machines, well, is that even the leading machine? I'm sorry, that's not completely correct. This is the 14 car of Ingemar Andersson, who's been in for the fast repair, come back out and is now making his way back through the pack. And as I said before, Edward, one thing is that it's going to cost him in the pit stop. Oh my word! Wanting the BMW to sort of get out of the way there, and he didn't. And
I think the BMW was doing the right thing, just keeping onto the racing line, and Ingemar Andersson, for some reason, was looking to go around the outside of the BMW, which was a very, very weird call to try and make, but obviously the acceleration out of the corner, the traction of the BLC1 car relative to the BLC3 allows the overtake to happen a lot easier on the exit. But still, that was a scary moment that really didn't need to be that worrisome for the number 14 car. So we'll have to keep our eyes on the process up through the field of the SimWorld.be fast, because it's easy to make those little mistakes, those little missteps when you're out of position, when you're frustrated.
Look at this one, Edward. Serious side-by-side battle, and then look as they come down towards turn 1. Oh, he just about does it before. It looked like he was gonna hanging around the outside for a second there. Ricardo Ferreira still with some company from Jonathan Poulet. Don't forget, these two drivers, these two teams basically, will know each other very, very well. Not only from the last season of virtual Belcar racing, where they were at the forefront, to say the very least, but also from, well, I guess different top-level series. Both these teams are indeed some of the higher-ranking eSports teams out there, and you will see them represented in most of the official top-level series that are around. Behind here, David van Glabeke is still with Maarten van Rijwijk for company. Another second and a half down to Paavo Fallen and Ben Thanes. And then Jeffrey van der Hagen, who's not letting go of Navarro de Bover in the RPM GT machine. That's Hans Blankert just up the road. And traffic is indeed really a thing that's going to be, I think, Edward, on quite a lot of the team's minds here at Sebring. Of course, they will have done a fair amount of racing, pretty much all of them, I think, over the last couple of months here at Sebring, given that we've had a lot of racing taking place on the official side of things at this very track. But the car combinations that we're racing here today is a little bit different. So the dynamics and traffic is going to be a little bit different as well here. And it's just known, Edward, to be a place where it's so easy to make a mistake. It's sort of got a bit in relation. It's a bit like Solder, basically, I think, in terms of you don't really get a lot of margin room for errors here.
No, you really don't. I mean, thankfully, the walls are a lot further away from the circuit in comparison to Zolder, so sometimes if you do make a mistake, it's not going to be as catastrophic. But like you say, it is quite an unforgiving circuit, and just the nature of how the corners come at you in certain areas so fast. Other times you have a lot more time to sort of relax, and it's all about trying to manage that as the race goes on. You can see here, pressure is mounting just a little bit between these two. A nice competition ahead of Valkyrie. Competition again. How many times have we said that over the seasons in virtual Belcar? Like I said, these two were real sparring partners last season, but that was for race wins. And you can see now that two other players have joined the party and really are starting to pull away out in front. This could be a very exciting season, just in terms of the championship in BLC 1. Good to see as well other teams joining the fray, likes of RPM having a great start to the season in BLC 2, and of course Traxxas in BLC 3. Familiar cars in that class, and they seemingly are extending their advantage in the lead there. It was 4.4 seconds, it's now nearly 7 seconds to the good.
They've really been running away with it there from basically from the get-go, and what a start. Of course, with the chaos in BLC 3, you would expect to see the splits appearing, let's say, a little bit quicker than in a class where you'd get a completely clean start. Jochen Lennart's just had a short moment before, but I think he is all right. Look at these two here, Paavo Fallen and Ben Thanes. Not too many Lamborghinis, I was about to say, but it's actually 5-7 or something in that. So it's actually not. It's not as bad as some were predicting, Edward. Given that the Audi has been very strong in the BOP of iRacing lately in GT3, or BLC1 as we should probably call it here. But regardless, great to see the Lambo getting some running as well. And to be honest, you never know which way the BOP is going to tilt next time around. Might be the Audi is the better, or the Lambo, sorry, is being the better choice in the long run. But that is, of course, taking a bit of a chance. Could be down to preference, could be down to, well, to team preference. Say we race the Lambo, or maybe whatever car people own. So a lot of stuff could come into that in the end.
I mean, it's like we're saying, it's just about how the cars develop as well over the course of the season, because we will be going through a few different builds of iRacing throughout the season, around spaced out enough that different changes to BOP, maybe even the addition of different cars might shake up the picture. Maybe even whispers of the addition of rain could potentially throw the cat amongst the pigeons towards the end of the season. Imagine how good that will be for the season finale, the 24 Hours of Zolder, with changeable weather conditions. That could be very exciting.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see it before that as well. Actually, it seems like it's pretty far in the process. Whether we'll see it here, of course, I think we mentioned this in the podcast that I was featuring on just a week or so ago. We did mention this as well, and we spoke about it, Ronald and I, and it's, I think, important that it works well if it is to be implemented. So it all really depends on just how the early builds of iRacing Rain is going to turn out to be. I think a lot of us are pretty excited about it. Great battle here, by the way, Edward. This is for third place in BLC 4, and we got the Squadra Veloce by BSR machine just behind this, so it's sort of a four-way battle here, and the Merc looking pretty strong, at least on the straights you would expect it to be, but that's where we know the BMW is strong as well. Edward, what's your take on BLC 3, and which car do you think we're going to see at the forefront this season?
I have to say, I think the Mercedes has come on a lot stronger recently. It was obviously preferable to drive the Aston Martin over the course of a longer stint, but the Mercedes is so good on its tyres. I think that's where we're going to really see the drivers come into their own. But one that I think a lot of the drivers have slept on is actually the Porsche, the car that is available to the drivers, but they just aren't seemingly running for whatever reason. That's a car that is actually really quite fun to get a hold of, and really manages its tyres nicely over the course of a stint. And of course, these BLC3 cars, the GT4s, they do take fuel at the same time as tyres. All of the classes do now, after iRacing changed the pit stop format, I think a couple of builds ago. So it doesn't necessarily have a huge impact on things, but it is something to consider. And now we are starting to see a bit of a train forming in BLC 1 as we come aboard with Jonathan Poulet in behind the Arnage competition car, who itself is behind the Schutz Motorsport eSports car. So this could be very intriguing to see how these start to squabble and maybe battle with one another. There's also a train, as you can see, just going into the hairpin there, of numerous BLC3 cars. So this is going to be tricky for all of the cars to navigate. Let's stay on board if we can with Jonathan Poulet, just to see what it's like on board for the drivers to try and navigate slower cars, especially through what we're coming up to now, one of the tightest areas of the circuit, places where it's so hard to overtake cars that even though they're slower than you, look at this, just a little opportunistic look up the inside. You can see now just how tentative everyone has to be to get through without contact.
And there was that four-way battle before we saw it just a moment ago. Oh, what a slight moment there for the BMW getting sideways. Oh, and it's not really a place for too wide action, and the 912 Merc goes wide. That's going to be a slowdown penalty of 2 seconds. A send from Jonathan Poulet, but we're going to see a change of places here, Edward. Surely, as Glenn Grondelaars and B-Sim Racing S had a bit of problem, there comes the Simpact Audi as well. Currently Martin van Rooijek with his eggshell helmet in 6th place. Sorry, Edward.
I think that Mercedes is actually going to get away with it just about. Chris, I think, has been able to serve the slowdown and maybe stay in front. can just see on the exit, the 912 car is currently in third place, and I think is able to hang on. But look at this, they're going 3 abreast. Round the outside goes the Audi R8. Looking up the inside as well goes the... Oh, that was a little bit tricky with the Flemish car.
The 192 there up the inside in Christensen. And getting the job done there on 3 Smoothie. So a lot of position changes here in BLC 3. A great battle here, Edward. Chris van Hucht here for BSim Racing G in the 912 Mercedes. And then BSim Racing S. So a bit of an in-team battle here as well. And the 192. And of course the Dynamics Racing Pink machine of 3 Smoothie. And Squadra Veloce by BSR. And Stefan Legan. And there's the 42 machine coming through to lap these drivers as well. And then it's something you really get into the flow of, Edward. And something that can really decide it. Not only on incidents, but also on just how well you're able to manage traffic. The less time you lose, every time you either overtake or get overtaken, well, the better of a position you're going to be in the end. And it's not always the most aggressive moves that are the quickest in the long run.
Yeah, so it's all about managing the race and managing your own pace, as well as trying to keep your eyes on the lap times of those around you. It's so easy to get caught up in battles and caught up trying to pass cars in different classes and actually holding yourself up while doing so. Focus on the exits of the corners to get the moves done without losing too much. You can just see exactly the case on display here as Navarro de Bova gets through nice and safely.
It's a good run though for Van der Hagen.
Very good, but all the way around the outside through Sunset. They're going to go for a little bit of a switchback. Looking up the inside, there's a nasty bump on the inside that's going to catch Jeffrey out, but he's going to get on the power nevertheless. Get the move done. That was a cheeky little look up the inside. There was just about a car's width on display, and he took that chance right away. Lamborghini's going to jink to the inside. Look at the aggression there. Just this sharp movement to the inside, but then backs out more, trying to throw off Jeffrey than anything else. Let's have a little look. Oh, that was so close to the wall, but credit to him, the 33, giving the space. Navarro de Bova played his part in allowing that move to be completed safely.
And now the Raider Racing Panda car has had a problem there for Hans Blancard. Oh, that's not a good place to be in. I wonder what's going on with the rear wheels there. That looked a bit weird as he puts it into the wall as well. Oh, he's going to be annoyed about that for sure. Now we said these were newcomers, Edward, in the Schütz Motorsports, the 51 machine here, but this driver certainly isn't. George Karakoulis was very much here, very much up there as well last season in the races he did partake in. He's having company from Ricardo Ferreira and from Jonathan Poulet. And it's now 2.5 seconds to David from Van Glabeke from this trio, and then Martin van Rijwijk. Just 0.8 of a second after.
I think as well, Haas, we have to shine a bit of a spotlight on the BLC 3 class leaders. That gap is now 13 seconds. This is a really strong performance from them in the first round of the championship. And I mean, it's so difficult to imagine that it's not even been half an hour's worth of racing and they're nearly 15 seconds clear. That is absolutely monstrous of the first 30 minutes by Stefan Verhofst right now. I mean, even in BLC 1 class, 5 seconds against some very quick drivers. I mean, last season's champions, they're running the 1 car for a reason. Arnage Competition down in 3rd place, nearly 6 seconds back from BLC 1 leaders.
This battle for 2nd place here in BLC 2 with Renzo Erlenbrook and GT Racing by Seenum. Head of the Valkyrie X-Type 877 machine of the Norwegian Roger Christiansen. I'm not gonna overpronounce it every time. But that was good flag. Duckman, not that I am aware. I'm not quite sure. I don't think there is. At least it's not something that we've had in previous iterations of the season. And to be honest, it's not something we've ever really needed. First of all, I think driving standards are pretty good. And we have the live stewarding to dish out the penalties where needed. And mind you, the stewards are pretty cold-blooded, I'd say. And they hand out the penalties that has to be handed out, and they do it without any sort of remorse. You know, there's no remorse in the penalties there. But it does also just tend to give us some really good racing. And a lot of teams that are well aware that they'll have to get things done cleanly. And it just adds...
Yeah.
That just adds to the quality of it here, as Ricardo Ferreira has a little look to the inside of George Caracoulas there, but thinks twice about it, I would say. It would probably be a very, very optimistic idea from that distance into turn 1 as well. But you want to make yourself shown in the mirrors. Martin van Rooijwijk here is actually doing a pretty good job of closing the gap to the Sim Racing BE by ROI Is that Maniacs? Management! There you can see. We'll have that. Hendrik will.
Well.
Ooh. Oh my.
Christophe Herbigno was half a second faster than Ferreira and Poulet, and nearly 8/10 faster than Caracoulas, who's in second place. So this is a really strong performance from Herbigno right now. The lead of BLC1, exactly what you need at the start of the season is to get yourself underway with good momentum. Look at that clear track in front of him as well, so you can just put the time in, get the laps down, and just execute essentially the strategy, the game plan to perfection, and essentially force the other drivers to maybe get a little bit creative to see if they can unsettle him, maybe by betting a little bit earlier, maybe by trying to fuel save as much as possible and have a really short final stint. It's going to be tricky, but drivers, I think, will need to start rolling the dice a little bit if they're to try and catch Christophe out in front, because it's looking very good for them right now. Here we go, though, in BLC3, and this train of cars all together on board with the BMW of the Squadra Veloce by BSR. Behind Dries Moody and Glenn Rondelars. There's again an almost identical lap time, a 2:47 out in front for the BLC1 class leaders. They are really strong in terms of their pace right now, even while the drivers chasing are doing essentially their almost personal bests of the race so far. They still can't match him.
I had to mute there for a moment, Edward, because I was cracking up reading chat. And Kim Bate with the "No, Ronnie, this is so not right." But in my mind, it was in a very Flemish accent, and it just became very entertaining all of a sudden. Lap 15 for the BLC ones. Hans Belcar, who had that issue a few laps ago, has recovered, but still with that damage to the rear wing. I think they got through safely there at the beginning of the race, but they will have to use the fast repair, I think, to get that fixed.
Car doesn't look too comfortable going into that left-hander. That little rear wing damage, or not little, it's quite significant, as you can see there. A weird divot in the form factor of it. Much cleaner here for Caracoulas. That's how the rear wing's supposed to look like on these cars. From Poulet as well. And just coming into Le Mans, it's so tricky to stay close behind because you have the air wash, the dirty air, trying to throw you offline and compromise your exit onto the back straight. Moving toward Sunset Bend. Here we go. We might start to see a bit of movement. These drivers are going to be fuel saving, obviously, for the first portion of the first stints. But then, as the race progresses, they will want to fight for track position, as yet again, the track seems to be getting faster and faster. Either that, or Christoph is really betting in, because now that's a 2-minute .399. Again, look, personal bests for Arnage competition, but they still can't match it. That's nearly 4 tenths back. And that's got to be demoralising, House. I don't know if you've ever been in a similar situation, but you're pushing really hard, you're doing what you think is a good lap, you set a personal best, and yet still the cars in front of you pull away. And it's just so tricky. Obviously, you know you've got a lot of time to go in the race, but how do the drivers sort of manage that?
This could be all down to strategy, and I think if you've done a lot of endurance racing, you will probably know this as well, Edward, that it's not, you don't really see the true picture until you've had all the drivers circulating through the car. There's a bit of a melee going on up ahead there, I think, with that Mercedes trying to... Oh, the 446 almost getting a little bit too familiar with the rear end of the Dynamics Mercedes there. That got a little bit hot all of a sudden there, but they managed to get on through it, and here comes the Mercedes for the run into turn 1. I don't know where that lack of speed came from the BMW there, but there's going to be another overtake here from Legan into Christensen on the 192. And Van Glabeke that isn't Van Glabeke, I'm sorry, that's Gronelaars that they've touched! And Stefan Legan is in the wall, I'm afraid.
Coming together on the exit. I'm not sure if it was just them not leaving enough room for each other, or if there was a car running across the front end of another. Is there a little bit of suspension damage there for Le Guen? Let's have a watch of the incident and see. But for me, it looked like they just had a bit of a coming together on the exit, and I'm not sure if drivers could have left more space to one another. Might have been a bit of a pinch on the exit by Le Guen, but it also could have been maybe a bit more track space afforded by Gronelaars. I think it might have been 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, but the most important thing is, does that car have damage? It's very unhappy at the rear end, but what about the suspension? Does it drive straight? That's the main concern, to get through to the end of this stint and then take the fast repair, because then you won't lose too much time being out of sync coming into the race.
It looks to be alright. Surely they're going to lose a bit, but of course, probably not that bad on the BLC 3s. There's a bit of a battle going on here with the Dutchman Martin van Rooijwijk for Simpac Noises in the 13 car. Note you that little detail of the upside down 13 for good luck. Very much a cycling thing indeed. Let you know that these drivers, both of them indeed, one more than the other, the Dane Jonas Holm, who will be in the car later, certainly a cycling aficionado as well.
Again, now BLC2 hotting up as Valkyrie is going faster than anybody at the moment of lap time, and that's because they are closing down to GTE Racing by Zenom. This battle for second position in BLC2 starting to hot up a little bit here, Hasse, but obviously you can see the front end damage on the 99 car, a completely spotless 877. You got to wonder if that might be contributing to the difference in pace, or it might just be that Christensen has been able to manage the tyres, manage the pace in the early phase of the race, and now is coming into his own as we get to what would be the second half, essentially, of the stint for these cars.
And it could also be a fact that, I don't know if it's a fact, it could be a thing that for some of the teams are running a setup that seems to take the lighter car better, the later stages of the stint, and sort of have a higher potential as the weight drops off in the car. As I said, not quite sure about that, but the 877 certainly on good pace here with Christiansen. Oh, so both of them getting slightly held up, but always
it's
worth.
Be a good chance.
Yeah, I was just about to say it, Edward, because it's always worst being the first guy to be held up. It's always easier to gauge it from behind, and here comes Christiansen in the 877, looking to the inside, almost trying to get that crucial overlap there. It's a place where you can overtake into sunset, but doing it like that always comes with a bit of a risk as well.
I absolutely love that from the 99 there. Renzo was not going to be intimidated whatsoever about giving room onto the apex. He was confident that there was no overlap coming into the corner, so he didn't need to afford any room. Just took his normal line and essentially forced the 877 to concede the fight there, as we have Hans Polmans battling away. You can just see how close they come to contact on the apex. That was a lovely little move.
Indeed. Navarro de Bova, or that was as we had a bit of a situation, but actually wanted to make a bit of a Hansi cavalcade because he has been on a roll. Here he gets the better of Jochen Lennartz. And I'm afraid to say that for now, it's all we're gonna have on the Pullman's cavalcade. Maybe more to be added at a later stage. We know we have a few supporters of the Viraco eSports team, so anything to please the crowds. As I say that, it's not really anything to please the crowd from either Edward and I, but I think most of you will know that by now. However, I do really appreciate the small shout-outs to as what's also going on track. We do try to keep eyes, ears, and whatever may have senses to try and pick up the best of the action on track, but of course can't always see everything, so it is massively appreciated to stay awake out there and hit us up if we're missing out on something. Look at Caraculas really getting caught up, and Ferreira, Edward, there's been a change. No, there hasn't. For some reason, I thought that Jonathan Poulet was ahead earlier. He was at least at the start, but he's lost 2 places from that. He's been sitting there in 4th place for quite some time. So
one thing that I have been looking at is wondering, is Ferreira being held up potentially by Caraculas? He's obviously sitting in behind, content to maybe save a bit of fuel, but is that maybe harming his chances of a race victory? Because all the while they're following one another, they're squabbling away. Out in front, Christoph Herbigno is breaking away and building that advantage. It's now over 8 seconds, which over the course of 40 minutes, that's a big advantage to accrue over such a relatively short space of time. I mean, we're not even an hour into the race and we've already got the margin where we've seen many races decided by already. I mean, most of the time races here have been decided by maybe 2 seconds or something like that sort of realm. Already it's up to 9 seconds. This could be a really dominant drive from Utzon VDS by undercut out in the lead of the race. But of course, drivers will have to change over and hand over to whoever is next waiting in the wings, and that could suddenly swing the pendulum depending on how strong the lineups are. They obviously tend to put their fastest drivers in at the beginning of the race to give themselves track position and advantage later on. But what will really come down to is how everybody in that team works together, not just those in the car at the moment.
Yeah, and just how the strategy works out, and we saw that on multiple occasions as well last season, Edward, that it is possible to play around with the strategy. It is able to do things that'll give you that little bit extra pace on the final stint. And we did see opening stints that turned out to be not entirely representative of just how the rest of the race was to go on here. Oh, a little bit of smoke here, and Jochen Lennartz, I'm afraid, has had a problem. I'm not quite sure it's been here. It could have been here. Coming into Christensen here, that's the Simpact Audi, and he just touches the grass there on braking. Solo incident.
Careful of the rejoin.
So, yeah, it's not the most dangerous place to be sitting there, but in turn, you could sit there for an awful long time. As Jochen Lennart finds out there before you can get safely rolling again, he does so. Well done here by him. It's a stressful situation, Edward, and just if you're a little bit too, well, say indecisive or just a little too eager to get going, you could really get in someone's way here. Still George Karakoulis. He might be slowing these other drivers down, Edward, but they're making no real efforts to pass at the moment. And you wonder if it's that Audi having that little bit more top speed, because they seem to me to be closing in through the corners, but then with no real answer once they get on the straights. That's an effective strategy indeed. Here, a pit stop, early pit stop for Simpact Noises. So speaking of strategy, this could be that they're on a slightly different one here. Maybe fueling less for the start of the race. I'm actually not quite sure, but in he comes.
That is really, really weird, because usually you want to go as deep into the race as you can for the first stint to give yourself a bit more flexibility later on. Right now, they're sort of, I guess, pigeonholing themselves into a strategy that they can't really move out from now. They have to try and make whatever they're going to try and do next work for them. I mean, maybe they're going to have to extend their next stint and then the final stint by a little bit, or maybe they're just going to think, you know what, we're just going to have shorter stints and take one extra stop and hope that that might be enough for us, and just gamble on everyone else needing to take an extra splash and dash come the end of the race. Obviously, Sebring is a circuit that does use the fuel a little bit more than the tyres due to the long, flat-out sections burning through the fuel. But again, that's something that we've seen drivers be able to manage, be able to look after. Had rounds here in the virtual Belcar at circuits like Le Mans, circuits like Daytona, where they have been able to look after the fuel and the tyres and make longer stints work. There's Herbigno again, catching the traffic very nicely there on the back straight, able to pass. Now the advantage 10 seconds. It's a really impressive margin already. And let's have a look here. Is John Goulet going to have a little look at these? I said no, he isn't slotting in behind. So again, they're trying to work together here, but for how much longer will that be the case? They're playing happy families for now, but as with most families, you know the next argument is going to be just around the corner, and with the pit stops fast approaching, it might be happening sooner than you think. Let's have a look now, Hasser, if we can, to the BLC2 class in the battle for second position, as Valkyrie Excite 877 rather is right in behind the 99 car. Two of them squabbling away. That gap still 0.3 of a second for second place. You have to wonder what their plan is going to be, because Vince Peters is decently ahead. You can see the margin of about 6 seconds. He's had that similar advantage for most of the opening stint of the race after a little bit of good fortune at the opening sort of few corners, essentially, with that huge checkup, slowing down a majority of the BLC2 runners and allowing him a bit more breathing room to get away and to build on his advantage. Now, I start to think, when will that come down? Because Renzo, he's a quick peddler. Roger Christensen, he's also decently quick as well. The lap times very similar, actually, between third and first. So potentially, if Valkyrie X can get through up into second place, might be game on for the race lead come the end of the race.
It really could. There's a long way to go here. Just about 2 hours and 15 minutes.
LC3, change of position here for second place. Arnage Competition and Dynamics Racing Pink fighting away. Here we go, side by side in towards Le Mans and all the way around the outside. Has he got it done? Yes, he's been able to hang on to it. Dynamics Racing Pink taking back second place, but those two were swapping positions for quite a lot of that lap there. So that was a great little battle that we just caught the tail end of. Dries Moody hanging on just to second place, but that BMW so quick in a straight line, won't be challenging it into Sunset Bend, but gets a good exit. Certainly will be trying to fight in towards turn one as fastest lap of the race, and now under the 2 minute mark for a lap time. Christoph Herbigno with a 1 minute 59.94. That's a supreme lap time coming through there from the BLC1 leader.
Fantastic lap there indeed. There, Dries Moody as well. He's been absolutely flying. I wonder what happened here. Something sort of must have happened in BLC3. That battle was for... What was that before? 4th, 5th, and 6th. It's now 2nd. Rondelars is a bit further back. And then Chris van Hoek maybe had a pit stop. No?
I'm not seeing any
No.
recent pit stops from any of the other cars or anything like that. So I think it's just Reese Moody having a very good time of things at the moment.
Yeah, he's
With Rune Hubbers in the mix. But again, a lot of those cars were thrown out of sync with the opening lap. There was a huge car park. Some drivers really did gain. Others dropped back. I mean, Dries Moody has gained 10 positions from the beginning of the race. Glenn Grondelars has gained 9. So real big moves and shakers have been in the BLC3 class.
That is absolutely true. So we'll ride on board with Jonathan Poulet yet again. It's status quo. They've been sitting like this for, well, the vast majority of this race. Of course, there were a few laps in the opening part where Schütz Motorsports have a little bit of an advantage down to Anash and Valkyrie, but that soon disappeared. And whether it was through mistake or through traffic, I'm not quite sure. All I know is that there isn't really any will to battle. It's all being very, very patient. You can see the lap times way well within a tenth of one another there as well. So really sort of are just holding position. Seems to be losing just a few tenths every lap. But the consistency of the Boots and VDS by undercut machine here, driven by Christophe Herbigneux, here on the opening stint, has been absolutely brilliant. It has to be said. They've been flying so far. And there's been a bit back and forth battling there in BLC3. Dries Moody though, 2 seconds already on the 101 Anas competition light machine here, driven by Rune Barbers. And then Glenn Roendelaars in the 192 machine for B-Sim Racing S, now at the company of Chris van Gucht. In the B-Sim Racing G car, these two has been, well, they've been close before, so another inter-team battle there.
Well, that was a bit scary, the exit.
There on the exit of the hairpin, yes, indeed. And it is actually, you have to say it, Edward, it's a very, very narrow portion of the track. And it does have that squirm there on the exit. The track itself, of course. The little squiggle there, which makes it so damn difficult.
Oh, we've had a movement up in BLC1. There we go.
Poulet's passed on Ferreira, and I wonder...
That could have been down to a slowdown because he's dropped way, way back. Let's have a little look here. Pulling way over to the right-hand side of the circuit. Must have had a little bit of a moment in the wake of the car in front. Dirty Air throwing him offline, off the circuit, through Le Mans, picking up a slowdown, and then having to concede the position, which is not what he wants as we approach the 1-hour mark, the time when most drivers of BLC1 class cars are thinking about making their first pit stops in about 10 minutes time. That's going to be a real spanner in the works for their plan, because ideally they were wanting to come into the pits probably as the car in second position, and now they might be coming into the pits as the car only down in fourth. So it might scupper their plans just a little bit, but obviously we'll see how they were able to overcome and adapt to where they find themselves, because that's one thing that Arnage competition have always done well in this series, is to adapt to sort of setbacks here and there and find themselves coming out on top. Again though, rugby outside competition, towards the latter stage of last season, they were the team that were really getting the strategy calls absolutely nailed down, so don't count them out of anything just yet either.
Absolutely not. Lexaro now on to the tail of JWS Motorsports. And a little bit of a battle here coming into the pit stop round through the traffic there with the sister BLC3 machines, the BMW and the Merc here. And Van der Hagen decides it's going to be no more than just a look for now, as they battle quite closely as well. That's Rondelars defending himself from Chris van Gucht. Navarro de Bover, as we saw before in the RPM GT machine. He's leaving the seat to Chris Franken. Great defending here from Rundelars in the BMW, but it certainly looks like Chris Van Hoek just had a little bit of extra pace about him at the moment. Both of the cars actually looking more lively than I would have maybe expected, especially on the braking. But they are, of course, these PLC 3 machines, the GT4 cars. If I'm not completely mistaken, and I might very well be, if so, do correct me, but I think they are all street legal machines in the end. And, of course, there is a bit of aero there, front and back, but it is really not all that much. So you're looking at cars that are...
as well.
Oh.
Just seeing Jonathan Poulet, fastest lap of the race, starting to turn the screw just a little bit on George Karakoulis, who himself has been setting his personal best of the race so far with a 2:07. So this could be very intriguing just to see how all of this pans out. You can really get the sense now that they aren't being so cooperative, just the attitude of the car, the way they're attacking the corners that little bit more now, the way that they're following so much closer through the corners as well. And start to feel the pressure mountain even when you're not inside the cockpit of the car of the 51. And now this is where you really do start to see the experience, I think, coming through in these situations. Being raced in this league before, knowing the format, knowing exactly what you need to do, is where Valkyrie X-Lite competition can begin to come into their own. And look at how far back Ricardo Ferreira and our competition have dropped back now. Look at that, just slowed down through the Le Mans section, in behind a rather battered and bruised looking BLC2 car. He's all of a sudden now, nearly 2 seconds behind this pair, and so close to one another into Sunset Bend. Long way around the outside to try and cut inside later. Apex powering on that a little bit earlier. And just the dirty air sort of keeping Jonathan Poulet at bay for now. And George Karakoulis can carry on safe for another lap at least. All the while, Boots and VDS by Undercut Red has an 11-second advantage. And they haven't even had their first pit stops.
No, that's true. And you have to wonder if we're seeing a lot of the BLC ones come in before the hour mark. It's going to leave a lot of them with a late pit stop as well. Could be why both Ricardo Ferreira and Jonathan Poulet has been seeming so keen on saving fuel to really try and stretch it, to take that pit stop less. And we'll see how everything looks in just a few minutes basically here, after the first round of pit stop.
Valkyrie X-Lite 877 right up behind GTE Racing by Zenom now. I think we're going to see an overtake being made in BLC2, and we are, as that car goes up into second place. So Valkyrie X-Lite up into second place in BLC2, Hassa, but I think GT Racing, they're going to try and fight back. You can see the relative there closing down.
Erlenbrook is still ahead, though.
I was saying that Valkyrie X-Lite is ahead on the timing software for me.
Doesn't for me.
Who were?
It's Erlenbrook, then Christiansen. Vince Peters still out ahead by about 8 seconds.
It was up and around for me, so that was very weird. Why my timing software just decided to do that on me.
Well, it's known to throw a hiccup here and there, so no real supply.
Ignore the timing software though, because I think now I'm seeing something that is not a mistake, and that is that Christophe Herbigno is into the pits, as is George Karakoulis.
Yep.
While Poulet and Ferreira, drivers that have been in the championship before, have been able to extend their stints, and maybe, just maybe, they can make it to the all-important hour mark and not need a splash and dash come the end of the race. And just how important might that be, Hassa, for the complexion of this race?
It could be all decisive come the end. Driver changes coming up here. So Boutsen VDS by undercut is going to be taken over by Jeremy Bonsodo and Maxim Robruck into the Brab car here. Robert Heger in for Schütz Motorsports. Let's see who comes out the first. That is a massive advantage. Look at that. The 17 car. They were, of course, 10 seconds ahead. So maybe were to expect this.
I think they've been able to build on their advantage through the pits, actually. Robert Hager coming out of the pits now. Ram Bellman's still stationary. Jonas Holm comes by. Simpec Moses' car, the 13 machine, up now into 5th position.
But actually, Edward, since everybody's been coming in more or less before that hour mark, they might have just decided that it's not worth it to try and save that much fuel. Come in early for the pit stop, maybe fuel a little bit less, and just sort of has that as they have that as their sort of assigned strategy. It's been working out well. They got the better of the let me see, that's the 61 car, the Sim Racing BE machine they were fighting before, by just a few seconds. And they've got Ward Mallards now in the 31 in between as well. Jonas Holm putting in some pretty decent lap times as well. So good pace from the Dane. Good pace for Simpec. Let's see if they can be gaining any more on the front runners. Also new coming team. Yeah, come on.
Valkyrie have kept going. Valkyrie have kept going. Our large competition now into the pits, but BLC1 class leaders have kept on going for another lap. They're going to make it to the hour mark, and that could really be pivotal.
It has to be said for Diegues that it's going to be past the hour mark, more or less just about as he comes out of the pit. Or is it? No, it's actually not quite going to be, because that pit stop's going to be going for just a few more seconds. Here he is on the move. So time not really working with a nice competition. There's a little bit of pressure now on Carlos Diegues to extend his stint for that little bit extra. You really don't want to be under that sort of pressure. Fuel pressure at the end of the race. It's a very, very tricky situation to be in as a driver and as a team.
Crucially, he's out ahead of Robert Hager, so he's managed to get ahead of Schütz Motorsport.
Yeah,
and that has been a real boon for them, because let's not forget,
big time though.
10 seconds. Dropped back around about 5 seconds after the slowdown that he had coming out of Le Mans onto the back straight. So there might have been something that went on in the pit lane for Robert Hager, because their pit stop was about 10 seconds longer than the likes of Carlos Diegues and likes of Jeremy out in second place for Boutsen VDS. So this is
hear me out on this
intriguing.
One. But hear me out here, because they were going really quickly at the opening part of the stint, just after the race start, basically the early parts of the race. They were flying along and actually gapping the cars behind as well. All of a sudden, Anash and the Valkyrie car were very much there. Of course, Valkyrie coming into the pits now for their first pit stop, which was indeed expected. But might they have gotten just a tiny bit of damage or something that might have slowed them down, both the situation and maybe looked like the cars behind were sort of in trouble to keep up there. Robert Hager and a big bounce off the inside curb. Just about managing to hold on. That could be. Not quite sure about it. Certainly it's but speculation. But it isn't that true that they've been jumped by an Anash competition in the pits. Anash now 14 seconds down on the Boutsen VDS by undercut. Who has indeed now undercut the Valkyrie X-Type car. Gaetan Angers is going to be coming into this car for the 677, and Carlos Diegues sneaks on through. Angers with a longer pit stop as well. So this might be down to some of the teams fueling that little bit less, maybe knowing that they're going to be taking that extra stop at the end. Valkyrie, of course, they would be going for it. They would be totally going for it. I think that, Edward, Anaj came into the pits, and they would have looked at the clock if they tried all their best to fuel save and coming up short anyways. You fuel less and you sort of try to divide it up, take shorter pit stops. It's 10 seconds per stop there, and if they can be quicker on track with less fuel as well, it's going to be very, very interesting to see if that sort of lends them the time at the end of the race to have a splash and dash.
Something that may have been forgotten throughout all of this, Hasser, is the fact that we had the full lap behind the pace car to start the race, which I don't know if that's been factored into the fuel calculations for the drivers, because then essentially they've already used a lap's worth of fuel before the race has even begun. So that needs to be factored, I think, into their planning of maybe the fact that that first stop was always going to be harder to save fuel for because of the sort of diminished opening tank that they were all running with. So that's got to be factored in, I think, to all of their calculations. And I think the fact that Valkyrie have been able to manage to get to that 1 hour mark while also having that full pace lap at the beginning of the race has to put them in the best position possible to get through this race without needing a splash and dash pit stop. And if that is the case, they just need to be close enough to the cars in the lead of the race, and they'll be fine. They'll be laughing all the way to the top step of the podium.
There's been a little bit of position switching as well in BLC3, but that's down to the pit stop for the lead car. For Robert Janssen having taken over there in the number 6 Traxxas by JWS Classic Cars. And that does indeed lead the thoughts towards the pretty legendary Alitalia liveries. And, well, especially in motorsports, we've seen them in years past. And I don't even know if they fly around as such anymore, if they've been merged into some other company. Some of the true flying geeks in chat here, you know who you are, will be able to answer that question. I am positively confident. We have some pit stops here for GTE Racing by Cinem and ART Sim Racing coming in as well in the number 11 car, carrying a little bit of damage there, Chris Lowers. Vince Peters still in the lead. 10 seconds, though, to Roger Christiansen, who's come past. I wonder if it's just because they haven't had their pit stops yet. Not quite sure. And they were battling the GTE car before, so it does make sense. Renzo Erlenbrook out of the car. Senne Lansens in. Benjamin De Pabe is taking over for ART Sim Racing 2. That's the number 12 machine. And then the 11 sister car, it's Laurens Stade taking over.
We're getting to the phase now, where I think we are starting to see the field begin to spread out just a bit, but it's still nonetheless intriguing because different strategies are already beginning to emerge, even though obviously the fuel is taken at the same time as tyres across all of these classes of car. It's still throwing a few little question marks just because of when the drivers decide to make their pit stops, for how long they're stationary, so we can speculate about how much fuel's being put in. There's so many different factors at play, but they're all coming together. Have plenty of excitement as, that was a big moment, and thankfully doesn't collect anyone else throughout that. But you can see huge damage to the front end of the 101 BMW, just running slightly wide on the exit, couple of wheels onto the grass, spins him around, and that's a heavy hit into the wall. I think Tom's been able to come into the pits and get that car repaired. Yes, he has. You can just see now coming out of the pits onto the circuit, 10th position in BLC3, but that was certainly not what he needed.
Tom van der Kimmen out of there with a rather unlucky moment as he just goes that tad too wide onto the back straight. It's a piece of grass there that's caught out many a driver. A bit of chaos into the pit lane. that was one of the BLC 2 machines, the 7 car of Jeremy de Boever and the DBR machine, and then of course the currently leading 100 Anage competition white machine driven by Leandro Verle, who's in the pits now for a tire change, fuel and a driver change, of course, as well as Thomas Stockmans is ready to take over and do his first stint of the season. Just where they're going to come out, I'm not quite sure. Robert Janssens has already come past. They might just be safely in second. I say that. Stéphane Leguin is certainly close there, and they've been into the pits but once, just on lap 16. So that's a little bit curious. They are, to say the very least, off of the pit schedule, and by a fair margin. And we've had a bit of spread, as you mentioned before, Edward. In BLC 1, it's still Boots and VDS by undercut leading now, with Jérémy Bonsodo behind the wheels of the 17 car. Carlos Diegues for Anage competition in second place, that number 1 car. A very good job, but 14.7 seconds. Gonna see how that stands at the end of things, Edward. Interestingly, Gaëtan Angers for Valkyrie, just 3.5 seconds down, but with a pit stop that was a full 10 seconds longer. It's been going very, very well since that pit stop. Another 8 seconds down to the Schütz car of Robert Heger, who seems a little bit stressed to me. That comes from a long way back. And the 446 BMW, the BLC 3 car, is probably not going to be too excited about. That was, is that Dynamics? No, that's Stéphane Leguin there. Second place in class. Slightly tight there. On his last lap there, Robert Heger, 202.36. So, might be that they've been having a bit of problems getting the car to really run perfectly there. Jonas Holm closing the gap. It's 4.5 seconds for the Dane.
Not forget as well, Jonas Holm came into the bits earlier, so is likely having a lighter car now in comparison to Robert Heger up in front. So it's got to say, the chase is certainly on Hasse. Closing down, and maybe the thought of pitting in earlier, gambling on everyone else needing to take that extra stop, it's working in their favour. But that's why you do need to think about the whole picture of the race, and if you can negate that pit stop, why not do it? Because it's just free time that you will be gaining on those around you. You don't need to fight for it, you don't need to work for it, you don't need to push hard on track to get that. All you need to do is just drive past while everyone else is sitting still, and that's time that you just get essentially handed to you on a plate. And I think that is where we're going to see, towards the end of the race, big changes in the BLC 1 class with Gaëtan Angers or Jonathan Poulet, whoever is behind the wheel of that Valkyrie X competition car, really start to gain come the end of this race. But it's still all open to play for. It's just about trying to come through. Let's just have a look at Kenny Hedermans.
Oh, this is Arno van Houten. I just had a mention of a big save for him, so we're just going to see if we can catch what happened. Oh, my word! That is massive indeed. Whoa, and I wonder if the poor Porsche, that would have been a code brown moment if ever we've seen one, Edward. A little bit too much of that inside curve. Launched the car, sending it sideways. Very, very well done, though, by Arno van Hout to actually keep that car under control.
Yeah, that was certainly not pleasant, to say the least, when something like that happens around you. But good to see that everyone got through there unscathed for the most part. The only damage done was psychological more than anything else, which is at least not catastrophic for everybody involved there, as we have now Well, time to focus on the BLC2 class and this little battle that could begin to emerge between Dimitri Coulon and Kevin Souffreau out in BLC3 for 6th position. Up front, I think actually Yellow for Stratton is involved in the mix and actually went back a little bit against Stefan Lequen. Not sure if that's appearing on the timing for you as well, Hasse, but I think we've had a change of position potentially in BLC3. Might have been between Verstraeten and Hendricks, I'm not sure, but there was a little bit of a moment here, and yes, it was. It was Verstraeten ahead of Hendricks, and it was all down to the slowdown coming out of Le Mans. Wonder how many times we will see that, Hasse, as drivers push it a little bit too hard through there. It's easily done if you get thrown out of rhythm, thrown offline. All of a sudden, you get a massive slowdown that you just have to take before you get to Sunset Bend because it just won't bleed off. It'll just build and build through the corners, and you can only really serve them on the straights.
And you pretty much have to get it done immediately as well, because it's gonna... Yeah, some drivers are very, very adept at it, but it can really cost you a long time if you're not decisive enough about bleeding off the penalty. As Lauerse goes past on Dirk Bouts. And that was pretty drama-free, to be honest. Up ahead.
A little overtake here. Lucas Weinant and Abel Court battling away in BLC2, having a little bit of a moment. And this was on the exit of Sunset Bend, all the way down the start-finish straight. You can see the Valkyrie car around the outside. This is very scary for them. They're having to try and chase down second place, and I think it was just a case of smart play there by Abel Court backing out and not wanting any part of that.
Yeah, indeed. Oh, and Thomas Smets with the info on Alitalia went bankrupt in 2021, now called ITA Airways. The more you know, the merrier, and you get wiser every day, as these two, it's David van Slambrook and who's Franken up ahead. Franken, who's being caught at a, let's say, considerable pace by the 177. The Racing Panda Machine is going to go for the late apex here in Sunset. Just going to wonder how much that bent rear wing is going to be holding them back. Seem to be too bad compared to the RPM GT car that is ahead at the moment. So, and just to reiterate the standings here, we've been racing for 1 hour and 15 minutes of the 2023 virtual Belcar season, and Boots and VDS by Undercut still leading Arnage competition, Valkyrie X-Type competition, Schütz Motorsport eSports, and Simpac Noises. Your top 5 in BLC1 and BLC2. It's Kenny Harrimans and RPM leading Jo Vegard Godestad in the Valkyrie X-Type 877. That's the Norwegian BLC2 car for Valkyrie. And then Senne Lansens for GT Racing by Sinem. ART Sim Racing, both of their machines in 4th and 5th, the 11 ahead of the 12. And then in BLC3, it's Robert Janssens and Traxxas by JWS Classic Cars. Currently leading Stefan Legang by Squadra Veloce by BSR, and then Jelle Verstraeten for B-Sim Racing G, with Jesse Hendricks for Dynamics Racing Pink and Kim Behaid for Firaco eSports Black, rounding off the top 5 there. Closing in on the halfway marker here, Edward. This opening hour and a good 15 minutes has actually flown by here, and it seems to be following the script of a Belcar 3-hour race. It's a very, very tight, very, very tightly contested, I want to say, opening stint, followed by the middle stint, which is a little bit more about strategy, a little bit more about making the flow of traffic work for every car individually, and then what I think we might just see here as Jeremy Bonsono gets a little bit too much of his left rears onto the dirt there. Exiting Le Mans, that can be very, very dangerous. We just saw that a few minutes ago. But I think with the pit strategies and everything, Edward, we could see this coming together big time. Within the final sort of 30 minutes of the race here is where we're really going to have to be awake to what happens. Because we could be caught out. And maybe even more than that. 10. Final 10 could be, it could be down to the final 10. But I think some of the teams that have been sort of aiming for what I will think will be a 3-stop strategy here, they will probably be taking that final stop as early as they can, basically, to get themselves to run a lighter car that little bit longer at the end. But we'll see just how it all pans out.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky because I think a lot of you can either try to go for it as early as you can, but also sometimes you can go for it as late as you can as well, just because then you don't need to worry about losing track position and being behind cars that you're trying to potentially battle and fight with us. Oh, look at this. That was a little opportunistic move up the inside by Arno van Hoyt. Just looking for a little gap, but it just didn't come. The acceleration of the Lamborghini so strong, and now in towards Sunset Bend. No gaps being formed up the inside, and you can see the early braking from the number 34, essentially giving up the ghost and looking instead on the corner exit. Going to have a good run in towards turn 1, but won't be close enough into the braking zone to properly challenge. Going to have a little look up the inside to maybe throw him off, but again, you can see, realizes there's no way you can send it into that corner that late.
Christensen.
Go for the move, but look at the run around the outside now. The speed being carried through, the confidence in the car. To have a look at the inside, they almost had contact. That was very cheeky there by Bram Bellemans, just chopping across the nose, basically saying, back out of this or we're going to touch. That was, I think, as strong of a defensive move as you can make, slamming the door shut in his nose. And thankfully, there wasn't any contact.
A bit of a back and forth here again between Jesse Hendricks and Jelle Verstraeten. Verstraeten holds on this time as well on the inside there. Not enough of a run for Jesse Hendricks to really get anything from it. Lexaro Racing is on a charge at the moment here, 10th place. Watch out for them to improve upon that. Though the Brab machine is right in front of them here with the next car. It's the Firaco eSports white machine, and they are indeed 25 seconds up the road. That's a little bit of a poor exit again for the 42 and Bram Bellemans. Really having to fight for his life here. They're going to go too wide. And if he can keep his nose in here for now, it looks in a very good position. You don't want to be on the outside here, and I think that's what Bram Bellemans found out exactly. The same thing there. Arno van Houten, Lexaro racing up into 9th, and we think we saw that coming, Edward. The pace advantage for the 34 machine here seemed to be quite noticeable. Now a bit further back, it's still the battle here between Huus Franken and the 11 car. That's the 11th place 33 machine. My apologies. And then, of course, the 177 Reta Racing Panda, driven by David van Slambroek. And van Slambroek is on the tail of that Lambo ahead. It's going to be the move here into Sunset. Just looking for the overlap. Not really getting it. And around the outside, massive send. Does it straight away, but he goes wide. It might not be over yet, Edward, because the 83, the 33, sorry, still very much in it. And I think a little bit more aggression there from Huus Franken, and he could have kept that position, but now he's going to go into it, though, at turn 1. That wasn't ever really going to work, and more just of a big look, though. But when you compromise your own line in a situation like that, you also sort of compromise whatever opportunity you have to further race the car ahead, and maybe Huus Franken just getting a little bit ahead of himself there, just lost that half a second, and now it's going to be a tough ask. Van Slambroek moving through. While further up ahead here, sorry Edward, but just a quick point here. 3.4 seconds now the gap for Robert Heger. Jonas Holm is right there, and Ward Malletz for Sim Formula Europe, who's also an experienced outfit in the virtual Belcar series by now, keeping up with the drivers in 4th and 5th very, very well for himself. Ward Mallet did a 2:01.09 on his last lap, so he's actually gaining a bit, and not too far off the pace of Carlos Diegues or Gaetan Angers. Up ahead though, Borsodo is a little bit off pace now, and they've been bleeding time to the following cars over the last few laps, Edward. That's going to be interesting. I don't think the Boutsen VDS Spy undercut the number 17 car. They don't really have the leeway tactically here to not be gaining, while there is at least one car behind that could very well look to do a pit stop less here.
Yeah, could do. Let's have a look at the BLC3 cars, because I think we're seeing a bit of a struggle with Thomas Stockmans as Dimitri Coulon there with a scary moment through turn 2. Let's have a look at up into Sven and Calvert, and again it's just the over rotation on corner entry.
Touches the grass there, I think, on exit entry. Yeah.
Oh yeah, just a little touch. Good catch there, Hasser. I didn't quite see it, but yeah, it's just the smallest of touches, but that sends him all the way around. And now, if we can have a look, yeah, this is what I was talking about. Thomas Stockman's trying to battle with Kim Behate, the BMW straight line speed, closing down onto the brakes into Sunset Bend, but just all about getting the power down nicely out of this corner, which he gets. And now it's going to be, I think, a close fight potentially into turn 1, but then just it's like the mid-corner exit acceleration of the not the Aston Martin, the Mercedes. That's so strong, but look at that mistake running wide of the apex, and Thomas Stockmans, he takes full advantage of it. They go side by side on the exit of the corner, wheel to wheel onto the brakes in towards turn 2, and the move is completed by Thomas Stockmans, now up into 5th place after a poor beginning phase of the race. Let's not forget they were one of the cars that had to pit on lap 1 due to damage, and now finds himself up into 5th position in his class. So that's a lovely little move, that taking great advantage of the mistake, and you only really need to do that once with the likes of Thomas Stockmans in behind you, and he will punish you for it, which is just done to perfection.
Absolutely. That was a beautiful move, but that 100 car, Edward's so full of talent. We've seen that time and time again. And also an outfit very, very experienced in these types of races. So
5k I rating for Thomas Stockmans at the moment. The highest I rating driver in that field at the moment out on track. So he's going to be the driver that they put in essentially to try and make up some positions at the moment at the midway phase of this race.
Here's
up in House in BLC 1, we do have, like you say, this intriguing little battle with Ward Mallards in behind Jonas Holm, who himself is catching up little by little to Robert Hager up in front. So we're going to start to see this battle emerge in the next sort of 4 or so laps, I think, just dependent on the traffic and if these drivers can continue at their pace for the moment. You can just see though how tricky it is through the Le Mans section. If you have a car in front of you that's a little bit slower through the corners, you can get held up, but Ford judges it nicely on the exit. A little bit of a moment there as he gets slightly on early on the power. You can just saw him have to correct slightly, but didn't slow him down too much. Now into a Sunset Bend, you can see BLC 3 car just up there, but not going to be too much of a worry. He's going to be able to get through before turn 1. Got those slipstream that's going to help him out to close down to the number 13 car up in front. But again, the gap stays 2 seconds between 5th and 6th, and it's about 4 seconds, I think, between 4th and 5th.
So still small margins after an hour and a half, just about. As Thomas Stockmans did get past there a moment ago on Kim Behate. Behate, though, doing a good job of staying with Stockmans. Stockmans looking like he was maybe going a bit deep there in the hairpin. And yes, indeed, that time was just bleeding off. And he's going to be within about half a second. As they
How about Hendricks and Stratton here, Hasse? Because they were fairly close to one another a few laps ago.
Yeah, they are a second apart by now for Straten, who did get ahead of Jesse Hendricks in the 88 machine. And Leroy Bolkestein with a loving, heartful comment there. Thank you very much indeed, and much, much appreciated. I hope you all are indeed enjoying the show here on a lovely Friday night. Easter time it is, holiday time for the most of us at least. And for those who didn't get the cross off when I mentioned the upside down number 13, it's a very special week. It is indeed the Holy Week. It started on Sunday. It's going to end on Sunday as well. And I'm talking about the two best bike races, of course, of the entire season. The Ronde van Vlaanderen was crushed by Tadej Pogacar on Sunday. And now we have Paris-Roubaix coming up. And a bit of talk about that, at least from my side. I'll keep it short. But the weather has been sort of so-and-so, it seems, in the north of France, and I think there has been rain coming down over the last few days, so it'll be interesting to see in what kind of shape the coupled sectors are come Sunday. Enough about that, we've got a race going on, and this is the Schütz car, who's just making his way through on some of that slower traffic. Very well judged, and that one is a nice one to pull off as well, although he did really mess up the exit of the 100 BMW, and you know how that is, Edward, as a driver in a slower class, you really don't appreciate the faster class cars when you coming through like that. Oh, on the outside.
Those two are still side by side.
Kim Hay really finding some pace here, not only on traffic, but he gained quite a lot of time through that lap there, so great driving from
There's Hendricks and Verstraeten again. They're closing up now. That gap is underneath 1 second, so you're starting to see the BLC3 class provide the lion's share of the entertainment, but it's just how it seems to go in these races, has the virtual Belcar. As soon as one class begins to die down and settle into a sort of rhythm, the next class decides to have his moment in the spotlight, and it is just excellent to watch and to know that there's always going to be something going on circuit here for us to bring you here for the virtual Belcar at all phases of the race. It is why it's probably one of my favourite events on the sim racing calendar to commentate over, just because all of the races, while being very different to one another, are also quite similar in just the level of enjoyment and entertainment they do provide time and time again. There's Kimber Hay closing down onto Thomas Stockmann's. It's all about the run through Sunset Bend. Different lines being taken as well. You can see Kimber Hay goes with a wide approach into the corner, whereas Thomas Stockmann's, he likes to try and hug it in tight and choose this moment to get onto the power that way with a fast entry. They essentially nullify each other in terms of the amount they gain at different points of the corner. So both lines are equally valid. Obviously, the quicker run out of the corner from Kimber Hay is allowing him to pile the pressure on into turn one. Now through turn two, closing down to one another. But then just the acceleration out of the corners by the BMW, really strong. You can just see how planted and steady that car looks. It doesn't seem to move about as much as the Mercedes, does it, Hasse?
It does look a little bit more jittery than the Mercedes. And on the braking in particular there, we've seen it on a few occasions. The BMW is just looking a bit more twitchy on the rear on the hard braking. That might be just something to do with the inertial weight balance. That would surprise me though. BMW usually pretty good at balancing their cars, but of course it's a bit easier to know when you're driving it than when you're sitting up here.
You can feel in these cars, especially in the Mercedes, the rear end does have a tendency to move about. You get a little bit of oversteer in those cars sometimes, but it does help you to feel alive in the machine and always give you confidence to properly chuck it into the corners to get that extra rotation through. Whereas the BMW, it can feel sometimes a little bit laboured, a little bit of a barge at times, but sometimes drivers like that. They like the predictability of the car. They always know what it's going to do every time you turn the steering wheel, even if it is going to be armfuls of understeer. At least it's something that you can manage and sort of set up for us. Here we go. Very early pit stops here. Jonas Holm coming through now, and so is Ward Mallarts actually that we're seeing now coming through for their second stop of the race.
Yeah, pretty interesting to see these two teams with strategies that sort of mirror one another, also being so close to one another on track and on pace as well. It's going to be very, very interesting because they could have a straight race to the line all the way to get there for an hour and a half. Maarten van Rijwijk takes over for Simpact. Bavo fallen in the Sim Formula Europe machine. Now let's see who leaves the pit stall the first. Of course, Simpact with the slight advantage coming into the pits. But it all depends on who takes the most fuel in the end. They basically come out through one another. Bavo fallen just about gets the better of him. But they took, well, about 3 seconds less for the fuel. How much that is in liters, I have absolutely no clue. They're getting held up there for the BLC2 Porsche. I think that is Laurenstad. Indeed, it is in the number 11 car. Michael Holsters and Tom van de Kimmenade. Those two are actually fairly close. Van de Kimmenade, I think, might have just gotten past on Holsters. I'm not entirely certain about that one. But that's going to make for a grand fight here, coming straight out of the pits here. Bavo Fall and Maarten van Rijwijk. And they're going to be a little bit down the order now following the pit stops. But of course, they want to lose as little time as possible, both of them. Because they're still very much battling the guys up ahead. They were close to the Schütz Motorsports machine. And both of them maybe with the hope of sneaking their way onto the podium if there's a little bit of attrition up ahead. Of course, you can never plan for these things, but you might just find yourself with a helping hand here and there, Edward. And it certainly shouldn't be the first time we've seen it. And should we see it, it's probably not going to be the last either. I'm just going to touch quickly on Paris-Roubaix. It's going to be a very hard one to call. The obvious answer would say it's another Mathieu van der Poel versus Wout van Aert battle, but I think it's going to be a little bit more complex than that. We've seen him as Pedersen in very, very good shape. We've seen a number of riders, somebody mentioned as well, Christophe Laporte, who's in very good shape. Philippe Ogana has been building up for the race. Not quite sure about Dylan van Baarle, whether he's coming back or actually whether he's been injured out with some kind of issue, because he's been very, very anonymous during the spring, which you would really expect him to be. So a lot of exciting things to consider for the cycling that's going to be happening on Sunday. We've got racing going on right here, right now on Friday night. We're about 5 minutes over the halfway point here, Edward, and I haven't been bored for a single second now, of course. It's hard being bored in your company, a wonderful company indeed. But also I feel like we've been served here with a wonderful race so far. Actually, very clean, except for that chaotic opening lap incident. We did get a message as well from race control saying no penalties were handed out. As a result of that incident itself, and I think they just deemed it all to be sort of 3 different and sort of more or less unrelated racing incidents, which looked pretty fair to me, and nice to see that the stewards do know to say when it's a racing incident. I have to say, the live stewarding that we've had over the seasons here, Edward, hasn't really let a lot left to be desired. It's been very, very good. It's been consistent, and there's been no real situations that I can think of, at least, where the rules haven't been sort of applied as they usually would. And that's, I think, a lot of the problems that people have been having with Formula One is the sort of the inconsistency in the stewarding, and what we have here is anything but, and that's all we can ask for. Really a problem here for Lucas Van and in the 992 BLC2 from 8th place, Team Vision, and he's lost a few positions. I think he came from 6th place here, just in front of the Valkyrie car. Oh, just catches the Armco fencing there, but so softly. No damage is done to the car, I think. And that's going to be a lucky escape for Lucas Weinand and Team Vision there.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Hasser, it's good, like you mentioned, about the work that the live stewards have done to promote exciting racing, but also fair and clean racing. And like we said at the beginning of the race, throughout all of the incidents, I did sort of put my amateur steward's hat on and say that the stewards are likely to be a little more lenient on the opening lap, because it didn't seem like there was anything too malicious. It just seemed like a lot of little racing incidents. It is the first race of the season as well, so they might have been a little bit more lenient here tonight than they could be later on in the season, when obviously drivers are expected to behave with a bit more maturity later on down the line. So we'll see if the stewards are as friendly to everybody here today later on in the season, because you will imagine as the rounds go on and the expectations for clean racing continue to be held up to a high standard, any drivers that do fall foul of that will be, of course, handled accordingly, as they have done all season long in previous outings for the virtual Belcar. Little battle this between Bavo Follon and Martin van Rijbeck. Martin just trying to close down, had a good run through the Le Mans section, might be able to get a good exit here depending on the position of this BLC 2 car. Staying well out of the way though, very smart stuff, not wanting any part of that, and slotting in behind. Lovely jubbly allows this battle to continue on unimpeded. I've also had a little look at the gaps out in front, and well, just to opinion that, Mosado coming into the pits, but before that, Carlos Rodriguez was closing down.
And someone was up there.
Fist. There was about half a second gained over the past few laps between second and first. So our large competition has been putting on a bit of a charge. And now, I think as a response, we see the race leaders in BLC1 coming into the pits, dear Hassan. Now, Carlos Rodriguez and Gaetan Anger coming up through into first and second.
Arno.
Arno.
Maybe not the time to be witty. Mr. May, as he tries to... just comes across there, and he's on the grass. Sometimes, if you're in a really precarious position, like Arno was right there, it's a very, very hard thing to get the car turned in the right direction without getting in the way of everybody else racing around. And thankful that he just about managed to get that sorted out here. The two closest cars on track, though there are a few other candidates by now. We will do our best to keep an eye on those as well. There's Thomas van den... No, that's Michael Holsters on the tail of Tom van den Kemenade here. And then, of course, further up ahead, we do have Thomas Stockmans and Jesse Hendricks. And I wonder what happened to Kempe Hades in second. Oh, they were actually coming together here as well. So, third, fourth, and fifth within just a few seconds here. And I think, actually, Thomas Stockmans just went past on Jesse Hermans not too long ago. That's into... Is that Tower, Edward? Or is that Gendemir? No, that's...
I believe that... I don't know, actually. It's difficult to see just from that angle that we were given on the camera, but that might have been Tower.
I think that was Tower, like the right-hander coming after the... There's like the tight right-hander, and then a long left-hander that comes into a tight right-hander again, and that final tight right-hander is Tower. And the one before that is called Cunningham, I think.
I think so.
The corner names at Sebring. It's a bit... I don't know why I have a hard time remembering these when I seem to be okay at remembering them for other places, but I can't remember it all, I guess. Kevin van der Wielen here, there's a pit in a bit of a sandwich. He just got overtaken by... I wonder if he came out the pits here. I'm not quite sure, actually. By the way, we have a new race leader in Gaetan Angers. Robert Heger, second. Those will, though, still have to do their second pit stops. Here is Christophe Herbigneux, though. He's back in the car for another stint here. Surely they're going to be on a 3-stopper as well. And then a new driver in the car here. Or is it? Well, it isn't really, is it? It's been in for a while. It's Lander van der Brande, but he's been flying under the radar so far. And the 61 machine. Martin Deckens is in for Firaco eSports White. And then Ricardo Ferreira with that second pit stop coming out in traffic here. That might be sort of suboptimal for a car who would certainly love to have clean air in terms of not being overcut too much by the others. Maybe running in clean air further up ahead here.
Yeah, that could be a little bit of a spanner in the works, but also Martin Deckens has been pedaling pretty quickly, actually, just set his personal best of the race on that last lap of a 2-minute .89. So he's certainly no slouch in terms of pace. There are worse cars to come out behind in the case of Ricardo Ferreira, but obviously you would always prefer to have clearer air up in front in a car just directly out in front of your windscreen. Let's have a look at Arno Van Hout looking up the inside here, just trying to find a way past Martin Van Rooijek. Nothing doing again, has to just sit in behind, coming out of the hairpin, and now all the way down this flat out section. And to pick your moment, be very, very careful. And he's going to try and take advantage of the gap that was made for him. The acceleration should help him out of the corner, but look at this, all the way around the outside. It's so difficult. This is the nature of Sebring. You try and get the move done, but sometimes it takes 3 or 4 corners to actually seal it, even against cars that have a performance deficit to you. So Arno does very well there to get through that in one piece. And now has to focus yet again on trying to close that gap down to the cars in front. Ricardo Ferreira again just having to sit behind Martin Deckens for now. Martin Van Rooijek, Arno Van Hout still knows the tail, but also trying to keep up with Bavo Follon, who is sort of in the lead of this 3-way fight. Now look at this. It has to be soon, I think, for Ricardo Ferreira to try and get this move done, but he can't do it because of where the other cars have been. Now he's going to have to really send it up the inside late on the brakes. I don't think Martin Deckens was fighting that one too hard. You could see braking nice and early, not fighting for the apex, not looking for the cutback, just conceding the position and saying, right, you can have this, you're quicker, and let's try and work together and see if you can help me out in what I'm aiming for in this race.
Look at this. Bram Bellemans here, he's 7th at the moment. Then comes the 31 of Sim Formula Europe and Bavo Follon, of course. Then Martin van Rooijek and Arno van Hout, all within a few seconds. But I think a few of them would still have to do their second pit stops. It'll be interesting to see how everybody stands once that pit stop round is completely over with and done. Stockmans we did see before get passed on Jesse Hendricks. Now it's the turn of Kim Behait. Try and find his way through on the 88. 2 Mercedes on one another. Might be a decent opportunity here, Edward. Into the hairpin they go. Oh, the 88 very late, but managing to block off somehow and defend. But it's going to be costly in the overall, in the grand scheme of things here, in terms of maybe trying to keep up with the Anash BMW of Thomas Stockmans, maybe trying to keep up with some of the cars further up the road. They aren't too far down, mind you. Let's see just how that plays out. But these cars up here are really getting close as well. Ricardo Ferreira did a very good job of getting through on Martin Deckens. Deckens will do his best to see if he can keep up with the quick Portuguese driver. In for a nice competition now. Bavo Fallen on the tail of Bram Belleman. So they've done a pretty decent job of closing that gap very, very quickly indeed. That looked like a pit stop for a moment at least for me. But it wasn't going to be that at all. And now Van Rooijwijk is going to be under pressure here from Arno van Hout. And Van Hout is probably going to send that one into turn one. He's going to have no real opposition there from Martin van Rooijwijk. And Van Rooijwijk, of course, also knowing that the Lexaro car still has a pit stop to do. So any time lost battling is only going to hurt him against the Sim Formula Europe car further up ahead.
You just see all of these cars so close together now. It is just almost an explosion of action in BLC1. They're all just fighting for any space they can. And look at this, a lovely move up the inside by Bavo Fallon, taking perfect advantage of Bram Belleman's being out of shape. And now Arnau is going to try and do the exact same thing. Looking up the inside, he has to be very late on the brakes. He's so committed, needs to be careful to not run into the back of Bavo Fallon up in front. He doesn't, he gets the move done. That was textbook stuff there of just being committed, making your intentions clear, and getting the move done cleanly.
Yes, indeed. The way you want to get it done here now, it's the turn of Martin van Rooijwijk. Maybe a little bit more difficult down into the next sector here. Really need a good run and a good bit of overlap. Of course, just aim for the exit at Le Mans. You should be okay. And this is what Martin does, and he's basically already alongside the Lamborghini. I think it's going to be a hard one to defend for Bram Bellemans. Further up ahead, look at this, Bavo Fallen and Arno van Hout. Van Hout is going to go for it here, I think. Not quite. Looked a little bit closer for a short moment there, but is getting very close on the apex, carrying good speed here. Arno van Hout on an absolute charge, and wondering about their strategy. Could it be if they're on a 2-stopper, everybody else around them on a 3-stopper, and they're carrying that kind of speed right now, it would be looking pretty good, but they'd have to stay out for a good 11 more minutes. Little jank there from Fernand as he had a look, but no more. See if he can put some pressure on to the car ahead. Bavo Fallen.
Oh my word, look at that little dive up the inside. That was such a late little lunge.
Oh,
and
it's gonna go way
he's
wide.
gone too deep, but that was a lovely little dart to the inside. He tried to catch him off guard, but the car was not settled and he ran just that little bit too deep. But that was a lovely attempt. We've got to have a look at that again because we just were lulled into the false sense of security. We looked away, but look at that. A darting move up to the inside, but just a little bit too much mustard on that one. Too deep into the corner, and that allows Bavo Fallon just to cruise on by.
Cool heads prevail in that situation there. Bavo Fallen certainly keeping his there. Van Hout is a man on a mission.
Though, it?
It was a. You really gotta admire the commitment there. Could have been much worse there for Arne Van Hout, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, he tried to catch out Bavo Fallon, and in doing so, he caught us out as we were going to look away from that fight. As he was darting to the inside, we both thought, oh, he's fine, he's not going to go for it. And then just in that split second, the move was on. He went for it, committed, and that was absolutely wonderful.
Oh, this is a problem for the 912 of Jelle Verstraeten, and that was from second place in BLC3. He does what so many others of the BLC3s have been doing and just catches the grass ever so slightly with the outside tires. This one into turn 2 into Christensen, of course, named after a very certain Dane. But we've been seeing that at Word on a few occasions, and it's been catching drivers out. especially in BLC3. Don't know if it's something about the width of some of the cars. Oh, Kim Behate takes a bit too much curb. He was very, very, very close to Jelle Verstappen there. Maybe just getting a little bit too excited about the fact that he might just go for the top 3. But for now, he might just live to fight another day. Still the first 2 cars in BLC 1 as we have it here. The Valkyrie X-Type Competition Machine 677 driven by Gaetan Angers and then Robert Heger. The German for Schütz Motorsports. Both of those yet have to take their second pit stops. And interestingly, Christophe Herbigneux only 11 seconds down on Schütz at the moment. So it's going to be very, very close for some of those podium spots come the end of the race.
And Van der Blande into the pits for Sim Racing BE.
Martin Deckens as well for Firaco.
Cedric Wouters also stopping for JWS Motorsport. And as I say stopping, he's starting up again. Coming up for what will be the second to last pit stop of the race. They will have to do one more splash and dash before the end of the race. And there's still that question mark, isn't there, Hasse, over Valkyrie X-Type competition, if they can make it to the 2-hour mark.
It's going to be interesting to see, though, Edward. They were one of the cars who took that long stop. I would be surprised if they don't. Schütz, I am a little bit more in doubt there, but they did take that full stop as well. Remember that Ricardo Ferreira in the Anage competition car did less fuel, and they're 13 seconds down on Herbigneux, so that's of course a straight battle for position between those two, and we'll see how they stand once all the pit stops are done here. David van Slambroek coming into the pits. Going to be a driver change. Hans Blankart taking over. And Stanley DeBow taking over for Lexaro. A 34 car. And of course, that means that we are back into a running order that we will have familiarized ourselves with somewhat at least further up here. Bavo Follen and Sim Formula Europe up into 5th. Martin van der Wijk and Simpact in 6th. Then the Sim Racing BE by ROI Management here with David van Glabeke. George Caracoulas coming back into the car as well here for Schütz Motorsports. Ferreira coming through though. And Schütz 6 minutes. Well, still 5 minutes. So I don't think they'll be able to run until the end. I would be very, very surprised actually. What kind of pit time are we then looking at? Should be a shorter one. If they're going full, it's going to be a very, very short final stop. They might be putting their money on a full tank now and seeing how far they can go, Edward. But I'm not quite sure it's the way to go. I think there would be time to be gained in coming out of the pits that little bit lighter. Being able to maybe run that little bit quicker. But we'll see just how it's going to go for George Caracoulas. All that battling. And you could say slightly bad luck in terms of traffic, at least for Bavo Follen and Martin van der Wijk along the way. They've had a few moments each. They come out around 6 seconds off of George Caracoulas.
Yeah, looks like it is. And I mean, as the laps tick by, you have to think, what is the podium in BLC 1 going to look like? Where will everyone come out around one another? Where will Valkyrie X-Type competition block themselves into this picture? Because for the moment, it is appearing like they are in a very good position right now. They will be obviously able to benefit from their long stint that they're on now, and potentially even benefiting from not needing a splash and dash come the end of the race. They have a 37.5-second advantage in the lead of BLC1. But even if they do need a splash and dash, it will be considerably shorter, you would imagine, than the likes of Herbigno. Whoa, that was a big moment by Jesse Hendricks going rear first into the tie barrier. Thankfully, there's no damage seemingly dealt to the Dynamics Racing Pink machine, but that was a very high-speed sort of loss of control. Yes, he deciding to come into the pits.
Yeah, it might have been doing so regardless. Maybe it's just to check. They will be gutted though when they find out there's nothing wrong with the car. They were in a decent position though in BLC 3. Now in a difficult one, to be honest. Maybe just taking that final pit stop now anyways, and Dries Moody takes over the car. Robert Janssens leads in BLC 3, by the way. About a minute to the good of Thomas Stockmans in the Enage Competition 100 machine. However, they had a pit stop more the 100 car, and that pit stop is going to be countered now by Robert Janssens, who comes in. We saw a pit time of 57.58 seconds, Edward, last time around, so they are going to be exceptionally close for the last time around. Here's Thomas Stockmans. He's still got a bit of way to go. He's coming on to... Yeah, he's coming through Le Mans now onto the back straight, indeed, so...
Having a look, though, Hasser, I don't think Thomas Stockmans is able to go to the end on this stint, so there is likely needing to be one more, because let's not forget they did 30. Take that one early pit stop due to the damage, so...
He was in on lap 30, yeah, that's true. That's been
in second place still, probably come the end of the race after they need to do their next pit stop. That is still a really big race from them, a good recovery drive to come back from that setback so early on to find themselves in contention for the podium places. It has been a really stellar job by the 100 car. Now, talking of stellar jobs, still Valkyrie X-Type competition continue their march forward in the lead of the race. And where are they on track? Are they going to be able to make it to the 2-hour mark? I think from where they are out on the circuit now, seems like they might just do exactly that. So this
they'd be okay with yeah.
Sorry,
they'd be fine with taking. I was just gonna say they'd be fine with taking the stop. It's gonna take a bit of time taking the actual pit stop as well. Oh. Watch out with the dust there on the outside. But yeah, indeed, Edward, brilliant race from the 677.
They've been pulling away as well, actually, from Herbigno in behind. Even with the, obviously, difference in fuel in the tank, they're able to build on their advantage over a second faster than our Nage competition right now as well in third place. So the pace is there as well as the strategy. In fact, speaking of the pace, it's a 59.6. That is a blistering lap time and a sign that, well, the hammer is being well and truly put down and they are going for it now. This is their in-lap. They're pushing hard, making the most out of their light car before they make what is sure to be now their final pit stop of the race.
And with so many others having that extra pit stop, it's going to be very, very difficult, I think, in the end. Another problem here for Dimitri Coulon, and there's a slight touch with the... was that the JWS Lambo of Cedric Wouters? I think that was indeed. He just had a bit of a sketchy moment there, Dimitri Coulon, but getting back on track without any real drama there. Just a bit of a scare. And as we go into the final hour, Edward and I are just going to take a few minutes to stretch the legs, to stack up on snacks and drinks and whatever we need here at this time of the race to just stretch the bodies for a moment, and we shall return with you very, very shortly indeed. We're going to go on board with, I was about to say Gaetan Anger, but he's going to come into the pits. It's not going to be massively interesting to look at, is it? So, we can go on board here with someone who's actually in a battle with someone here. Stefan Verhofstadt, currently 4th in the number 6 Traxxas by JWS Classic Cars. As I said, Ed and I are going to be back in about 45 minutes or so. So to enjoy the few moments of silence, it's going to be the last hill head for the final hour of the race. And Ed and I will be back in a moment to take you through the rest. And ladies and gents, we are back for the final 54 minutes of racing here from the opening round of the 2023. Sorry. 30 something. That's a fair way out in the future. The time machine has been working here. No, 2023 virtual Belcar season. There it is. Oh, we've had a problem here for Bard Fingerholt. And that's in turn 1, I'm afraid. And that's for the 65 Dynamics Racing by Specto Group. Long slide, comes to a stop. The tires probably won't be too happy about it here. Tim de Hond has had a problem as well in the number 9 Brab Alpha by time. Oh, locks up the brakes, overshoots it massively into the hairpin and takes the safe route, you could say. Oh, and there's been a problem for Ricardo Ferreira. And I wonder, there's been a massive one here. Pierre-Yves Desaut has had a problem too. We'll just have to see. Here's Desaut. Way off in the gravel there. Comes to a spin and he comes back. But he has another issue, Edward. Just a few seconds to see if it's having to come around. And
Goes off the circuit and then has to come back on, I think. So does the
think
right thing, stays well out of the way.
And
what was
here,
the issue for Ricardo Ferreira? Oh my word.
Ferreira into the wall for the number 1.
He got really lucky there, Hasser. He went into these soft tyre barriers. If it was just a few meters later on, he would have been hitting that solid concrete, and that would have really hurt his chances. But he's going to be grateful that those tyres were there to sort of cushion the impact. But that was such a weird incident. I don't think it needs to happen. It was on near enough a flat-out section of circuit, and it looked to me like Ricardo Ferreira almost sort of ran into the back of the car ahead.
Yeah, let's see. Coming on. There we are. My apologies.
Let's have a... yeah. It just...
I think it's a net code.
Yeah.
Slight net code. Just about there, I'm afraid.
Astonishingly, though, their pace has been so strong that even with that incident, they're still comfortably in 3rd position. Obviously, they do need to have one extra pit stop. So do, well, Schutz Motorsport eSports drivers as well.
But
they need to have one
Edward.
pit stop.
It's coming together for 4th place massively here.
Yeah.
Schutz has lost a massive amount of time to both Van Herwijk and Babo Vollen. Van Herwijk is right on the tail as well. The 13 on the 31. You would
Do
think
they have
there's
damage
the cars.
potentially? Because
Might be.
Karagoulis is all of a sudden off the pace, and he was so quick at the start of the race, matching the likes of Poulet and Ferreira, and now all of a sudden he was 2 seconds a lap slower than last time. Now he's
Probably just traffic there, Edward.
But even still, Bavo Follon and Martin van Rooijek, they were a second a lap faster than him last time around. So the pace is definitely there, and I can't imagine the traffic has had that significant of an impact on them, because don't forget, if George has to get through them, so does Bavo Follon and Martin van Rooijek. They had to deal with the traffic as well. So
That's
just
true,
looking
Edward,
at this,
but it's a question of timing, you know. Sometimes you run into traffic somewhere where you really can't get past. It is true, however, that they are seeming to really be gaining on him. Karagoulis, it might be true, but
can't
it just
see any
doesn't.
damage.
No, exactly. There isn't really any visible damage to the car, so you have to wonder. We'll have to see with the lap times as they come through next time around. If they're being held up by a second, it should be relatively easy for follow. Oh no, that's a luck there. That's a bit of a look into the hairpin, but yeah. Let's go on board here with Martin van Rooijek and see just how the battle unfolds from the eyes of the Dutchman in 6th place. Driving the debut race for Simpact Noises. It's been a fine debut so far for Martin van Rooijek and Jonas Holm.
This is really coming alive now. We always said it wouldn't the last hour, but it's really started to develop now as Martin van Rooijek is chasing down Karagoulis and Bavo Follon. Bavo being his primary target. Look at that little dive up the inside. Is he going to get the move done? Yes, he does. Bavo Follon with an excellent overtake through Sunset Bend. We've never seen anyone do that throughout the whole of the race. That late of a plunge. Oh my word, we'll have to watch that one back, but it's still going on now between Van Rooijek and Karakoulis. Karakoulis with the inside line, but the momentum should favour Van Rooijek because he can get on the power that little bit earlier. There's contact on the exit of the corner. They're squeezing one another, and somehow they don't come to blows.
Wow.
Martin Van Rooijek has to hang back, concede the fight for the moment. But let's have a look, Castor, if we can, at that move. Bavo Follen pulled off. Look at that, darting to the inside. He gets the overlap, forces Karakoulis to give him the space. There's no contact. That was a clean move, albeit a little aggressive, but that was exactly what you need to do in those situations. Aggressive, committed, but clean. Perfect overtake.
Yeah, beautiful one. And Martin van Rooijek's gone past as well here on George Karakoulis. So it could very well be that there's some kind of issue. This is coming into the hairpin. He just senses it. Realizes he has to go through on Karakoulis if he's to keep up with Bavo Follen up ahead. Maybe also realizing that George Karakoulis is going to have a much, much, much later pit stop than they are. And they are going to be in a spot of bother if they hang around behind the Schütz Motorsport eSports machine for very long. So Sim Formula Europe up into 4th place, Simpact up into 5th, Schütz down into 6th. For now, at least, it's of course by no means certain that it isn't going to change. There's been a bit of an issue for Hans Blankard as well, I think. We see the smoke. That was the overtake. Here comes the issue itself for the 177 that's in battling with the 14 car. Oh, and they tangle. The Reta car of Hans Blankard not giving a lot of space there on the outside, but maybe that should also be a message to not stick the nose in. So it takes two to tango. It takes two to tangle as well. That's what we saw right here, wasn't it, Edward?
Yeah, exactly. It was just one of those little moments where not enough racing room, I think, was afforded, and it's just one of those moments where both drivers will probably look back and think, yeah, I could have done a little bit better there. And I'm sure there won't be any hard feelings. It's just one of those things where the drivers will take from it, learn from it, and then move on, which is what we always tend to see in virtual Belcar. There's never really any bad blood. Everyone seems to get along well, and even if there are incidents, usually it doesn't leave any bad taste in anyone's mouth after the fact.
No,
Here
also
we go,
because
Hasse.
there are the stewards
just-
to... Sorry. But
I was just about to have a look at this fight, actually, just to draw attention to it, because Renzo Olenbroek is in a bit of a tussle here with Chris Lowers in
I think
behind.
he actually just went past. Oh, it's on the pit exit for Lowers, who comes out there.
Yeah.
Erlenbroek squeezes through and then into the traffic. It's like taking a plunge into the sea from a tall cliff sometimes if you have to send it from really far back. You have to be careful in the Porsche Cup cars. Great driving though from Erlenbroek, just to hammer home the advantage, at least for now. Oh, Van Rooijek's gone past on Bavo Follen as well. Oh, that's going to be a sneaky one, using the traffic to his advantage.
Oh, that was beautiful. Oh, he's got a little bit squirrely on the exit, though, and Bavo Follen is fighting back. Let's have a look at the replay still as it carries on, because Bavo Follen, with the run all the way around the outside, this will have to be committed into Sunset Bend. They're going to be going 3 wide with the back marker, and look at that. Bavo Follen just gets his nose in front, holds on to the position. That was excellent stuff, a little cheeky move, and then all of a sudden, Van Rooijek takes advantage and goes around the outside because Bavo Follen, he's coming into the pits.
So maybe
Oh,
Van
my
Rooijek's
word.
just aiming to do 1 or 2 laps now, just to hammer home the advantage if he can. Mind you, if he can. And then it's going to be a real fight to hold off George Karakoulis and Schütz Motorsports, or maybe to put it differently, to gain enough that they will be retaking the position after the final pit stop of the Schütz car. We'll have to see just how that develops. ART Sim Racing just still 0.6 of a second off here from Renzo Erlenbrook. This is actually a nice little transition as Martin van Rooijweg comes up to lap these cars here. On the SimWorld BMW 114. Currently sitting, well, third in class here actually. Steven Delaire-Snyder for SimWorld.be Rapid. It's been a very, very good race so far, but no real trouble. 0 off tracks, and I think 0 incidents for them in general. A squeaky clean car. They're coming through looking strong for a podium place so far at least. I'm not gonna say anything to jinx it, hopefully. As Belcar is in the pits after that incident we saw him have earlier on here, as Martin van Rooijweg now is getting caught up to by George Karakoulas. Again, might just be that slight unlucky moment in traffic. Martin van Rooijweg won't be super excited about the traffic he's had on this lap. Very good odds that he's actually going to come out behind. Maybe one just... Yeah, it's going to carry on for another lap.
I mean, it's smart. Might allow him to have a shorter final pit stop, not needing to take as much fuel on board, which obviously gives him the advantage later on as well. So there's swings and roundabouts to all of this, Hassa. Different ways that drivers can approach their battles. But one thing that we have to watch now is the process up through the field of Christoph Herbenjo, the Boutsen VDS by Undercut team, because they are in the lead of the race, but we are expecting them to make one more pit stop. And while they do have a 32-second lead to Jonathan Poulet and Valkyrie competition, you have to wonder, is that going to be enough to make up for the extra pit stop that we're expecting them to make?
But I think I can well answer that for you. That's not going to be anywhere near enough. I think the time it takes more or less to drive through the pit lane and just stop and go again is about 32 seconds. So that's going to go on that. It isn't going to be far off though, and it's not like we're not going to have a race. And even if the Boutsen car comes out that slight bit behind, the thing is though, if they run to I don't know how the track temps are at the moment. Actually, we should probably see if we can find the weather. There we are. 31 degrees, so not really you'd expect into double stinting territory at all here yet. And it doesn't look like we're going to be getting there, because tires is going to be a thing as well. You might be able to do a short stop on the fuel, but for how long will you have to run a worn set of tires with that fuel? That's going to seriously impede you towards the end of the race, and might actually end up throwing you into the clutches of someone else there.
Yeah, and iRacing have obviously increased the amount that the tyres are worn in the GT3 cars to the fact that essentially you really do need to be changing them every single hour. That's the reason why they've also made the tyre change and the fuel change happen at the same time. But of course, if you are doing a splash and dash, the tyres are going to be taking longer than the fuel, so you don't want to take the tyres at all for a splash and dash. So that will obviously work against Boutsen VDS by Undercut, because they came into the pits fairly early, actually. They came into the pits on lap 49. Jonathan Poulet came into the pits on lap 60. So there's going to be an 11-lap difference in the tyre life of these two, should Boutsen VDS not take any tyres. And that is a significant difference, and one that will work in the favour of Valkyrie competition.
Very true indeed here. We've had a bit of a shuffling around in BLC2, but I think everyone will need that final pit stop for here. But it's Aaron Baba for RPM and the 32 car leading Sam Hammerstedt. Now, I did say that this was a Norwegian Valkyrie car. That turns out to be not quite true, because they do have a Swedish driver as well in there, but it's very much Scandinavian. But Valkyrie now in second, and then Renzo Erlenbrook about 18 seconds off of there, but very close still to Chris Lauwers, who's by no means been getting dropped by Renzo Erlenbrook after just getting out of the pits behind the GT racing car up ahead. And then in BLC 3, it's also actually close here because Hansi Poolman's up into 4th place here. Brilliant drive by Hansi in the 876, sorry. And then Matthew Schroeder in between there, and Chris van Hocht as well. So they're very close to one another there in the battle for 4th, 5th, and 6th. Steven then there, Snyder in 3rd. Actually not too far up the road as well. It's just about 6 seconds. Those positions could be fought very hard for. Come the end of the race, Edward, it's just 38 minutes left, and whoever's got time to make up is running out of it. Whoever's getting caught would probably wish for the race to be even shorter. And some truly stressful times will be coming up for some of the drivers in the field. Let's see how everybody deals with that here.
Speaking of being caught, I mean, there was a huge advantage in the BLC3 class for Traxxas by JDOS Classic cars. They had nearly a minute for the rest of the field. Now, all of a sudden, if you look there, it's down to 17 seconds, and there's no pit stop advantage because Stefan Verhofstadt, who's currently behind the wheel of the car leading BLC3, pitted on lap 58. The car behind, Leandro Verla, pitted on lap 57. So they're essentially in sync on the pit stops. It's, for some reason, that advantage has been completely nullified. And when you look at the pit stops, Leandro Verla had a 56-second pit time, basically time stationary in the pits. For me, it has. I'm not sure if it's the same for you, but it's saying 9.68 for the Belgian who's currently leading. So does that mean that the number 6 car needs to make one more pit stop and the number 100 car is fine to go to the end? Because I think we've just lost Hasse. Hasse, are you there? Appears not
apparently,
for the moment.
Apparently there was a bit of a mute issue there.
Oops.
The number 14 cars had a 30-second penalty for avoidable contact. That is, of course, it's a BLC 1 car. Yeah, that's SimWorld.be Fast and Yannick van Overloop, currently in 13th place. Not quite sure about the Traxxas by JWS Classic cars and that aforementioned pit stop, Edward. If so, they'll be in a good position. I think they have about 16 seconds down to the...
I'm more concerned, Hasse, by the fact that they might need to do one more pit stop because their last stop was 9.68 seconds. Leandro Verla's was 56, so they're probably fueled up till the end. I don't know the situation of the number 6 car, if they're fueled till the end and they had to do another short pit stop afterwards. I'm not 100% on that one because I could only see what their last pit stop was. If it was just 6 seconds, not just 9 seconds to take fuel on board, I don't know if that's going to be enough for them. So we're going to have to watch this unfold and see what the situation is, because at the moment, just from what we're seeing, it could be an amazing comeback drive to win the BLC3 class from Arnage competition.
Not an easy thing to do given the start they had in the space of 3 hours. That would be hugely impressive.
Speaking of Arnage,
here.
Look at
in
them.
for a pit stop. Yeah. Ricardo Ferreira in for their final pit stop here. 35 minutes of racing still to go. They're coming in.
Made their final pit stop as well. In on lap 70, so that's 2 laps to go.
Yeah. Boutsen has been in there past again now. So it's going to be a tough ask for Ricardo Ferreira to do anything about Christophe Herbigneux up the road in that Boutsen car. And now it's all about then George Karakoulis.
We're expecting Karakoulis to also have one extra pit stop. They might be coming in on this lap or maybe a few more down the line.
And we've had a pit stop. Yeah, Simpact and a driver change. Jonas Holm is now in the car. He's come out in front of Ward Mallets there. So that's a second to the good. And an important place to gain in this situation. Here comes Ferreira out the pits. He's behind Karakoulis by about 6 seconds. Actually, David van Glabeke there, getting pretty close. But he will have an extra pit stop to do. So will Ben Thanes. And they will be pitting, I think, over in the next few laps here. I wouldn't be surprised, at least. ART Sim Racing and Chris Lowers. Currently 4th there, still chasing down Renzo Erlenbrook, making inroads there, getting closer to the 99. You can see a difference of what I would call cleanliness in terms of the cars there. A bit of a bump to Renzo Erlenbrook's front. Just how much that's going to affect him, though I'm not quite sure, but we'll have to keep our eyes peeled to this one as well. Aaron Baba looks in a very good position to take the win for RPM in that 32 car. Brab comes in, that's Maxim Robrook. Still this battle as well, as we need to keep our eyes pretty much everywhere, Edward. It's very, very close here. There's been a problem for Bart Fingerhout, who's in the 65, had a bit of an issue. Oh, just carrying too much speed, slides around and attacks the concrete part of the wall there. He goes on, and I don't really think there's going to be too much damage to that car. Probably pretty okay there.
Looked like just a glancing blow. Very fortunate to get away with that one, because obviously, like we know, those concrete barriers, very unforgiving, do deal significant amounts of damage, and that could have even been suspension damage when it comes at an angle like that at the rear end. So very fortunate to carry on relatively unscathed. Now we have to keep watching all around. I mean, we've got Renzo Ulenbrook in a battle up in the BLC 2 class. I think trying to close down on, or being closed down upon rather, for a fight for 3rd place, if I'm looking at that right, Hasse.
It's 4th, I think. It's 4th at the moment, with Steven de Leer Schneider 3rd, Leandro Verle in 2nd. Yeah, so it's 4th place at the moment, between Pullmans and Matthew Schroeder, and Chris van Gucht only 2 seconds down the road.
BLC2, Hasse.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were...
ART Sim Racing is, I think, trying to close in on the GT Race My Zenom kart. Here we go, a battle for the podium in BLC2. To emerge, looking at the most recent lap times, Chris Lowers is certainly quicker, just on most recent evidence, by the tune of, well, about half a second. And that's certainly not an insignificant pace difference. You've got to wonder if the momentum is with Chris at the moment. Both of these drivers putting in relatively similar points of this race. Renzo Ulenbrook on lap 58, Chris Lowers on lap 63. Both should be able to make it until the end of the race. So it appears to be just a straight out dogfight until the end.
Yeah, so you would imagine here for the BLC2 cars, you can see both of these drivers really pushing it. This is the time where you really have to be mindful of not throwing it all away within the final 30 minutes of the race. There could be much to gain, but also so much to lose, as there's another problem for another one of the BLC3 Mercedes. Edward, I think that's actually a bit of a deja vu here for Bart Fingerhout. Carbon copy, although he smashes it into the soft barrier this time around. And how that's not caused any damage, I'm not quite sure, but he seems to have gotten away with it somehow. Well, told by Robbie Janssens as well that Stefan Verhofstadt does not need to pit from the lead of BLC3, so it's going to be a straight race between himself and Leandro Verde all the way to the line, with Steven de Leer Schneider looking to see if he can get in there, and anyone basically in behind. Not too far behind, certainly not far enough behind to really have to do anything wild. If anything happens up ahead, they'll be straight into the fight. And it'll be a hot one for the podium. the podium places. I think in BLC3, come the end of the race, just under 30 minutes, just under half an hour to go. And what has been a brilliant opening round of the virtual Belcar season 2023.
Just watching as well about all of these different races and the way that they've unfolded. We're into the last half hour, and it looks like it's smooth sailing with Jonathan Poulet and Valkyrie Excellent competition out in the lead of BLC1. You can see them now just having to get through the traffic here. Got a car ahead that they're trying to get past. That is the 13 car in their class, Yannick Van Overloop. But this has been a real display of excellent strategy management, excellent endurance racing by the 677 to have the plan to make it to the hour mark, to save that fuel, think about the bigger picture, give up the track position at the early phase of the race, and know that you're on the fastest track to be in the best possible position when the checkered flag falls, because that's when the points are scored. That's something that has seen them do so well in seasons past, and looks like this current season is going to get off to a winning start, because looking at the times coming through, while Christophe Herbignot is closing down, I don't think he's closing quick enough to try and make up that deficit due to that extra pit stop.
0.6 of a second on the last lap itself. But I don't think he'd be able to continue that sort of pace of gains. Can be difficult in traffic at least, but we'll have to see here. I think he'll be attempting at least, Christophe Herbignot. And just when are we going to see Schütz and George Karakoulas come in for that final pit stop? Look at that, Ricardo Ferreira on the tail here of George Karakoulas. So it's heating up for third place, very much so. Karakoulas, though, still needs to do that pit stop. So does David van Glaveke. So does Ben Thanes. It's about 8 seconds down the road from here. You have about Van Glaveke here, 40 seconds ahead of the Simpac car. So you wonder if they're going to be able to come out ahead. With these shorter pit stops being taken at the end of the race, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how it all just comes off. Karakoulas, Ferreira, currently the two closest cars on track. And by a fair margin, actually. Board now with the number one Anash competition car. Huracan GT3. Actually so similar, the two machines there, the Audi and Lamborghini. We've touched upon it before. I think most will be well aware that the two cars are mechanically not completely alike, not clones except for the body shell, but do share a number of components with one another. Ricardo Ferreira, some very fine pace at the moment. Maybe George Karakoulas just wondering when to take that pit stop. Oh, and here comes the send, and it might just end in tears as Ricardo Ferreira just muscles his way through.
That was a very cheeky little send by Ricardo Ferreira, but what a send it was. There was just about enough space. A little bit of door banging, but to be fair, the app was there. I don't think he ran him out of room. It was just a case of them squeezing one another, and that was a lovely move, judged to perfection. It was cheeky, it was late, but it wasn't, untoward. It wasn't a dive bomb. It was perfectly all above board. It was just right on the very limit, but we love to see stuff like that. We like to see drivers throwing it all on the line and going for those sorts of moves, because when they come off, they just look absolutely wonderful as, oh dear. That's not what we want to see at all. Hans Pohlmann's, like you say, getting just tagged up the rear end in towards the turn 2.
It's by the 992 here of Jorrit Svinen. Let's go on board with the Porsche Cup car and see tries to follow in through and just understeers. Yeah. That might just be a penalty incoming for the 992 there. That could cost them 8th place. Team Vision there. It's been a tough race for them so far, I think. But out ahead, Jonathan Poulet is in a brilliant position indeed, Edward. You mentioned it, and it is very, very true. Does look like Valkyrie and that 677 machine could just be running away with it today. Aaron Baba 20 seconds to the good of Sam Hammerstedt. Mind you, I think all of the BLC2 machines are indeed done with their pit stops.
Leandro Verlet closing down on Stefan Verhofst. Not close enough, but he is closing down Hasser, and all it takes is for potentially a little bit of traffic, or potentially, like we say, that possible little splash and dash that Stefan might need to make to come into effect.
Robert Janssens was in chat telling us that he won't need to pit, so trusting that it's going to be a straight race to the line there, but when it's 4 seconds in the space of, 5 minutes or something, that Stefan Verhofstadt has lost to Leandro Verle. It's and it's imagine this is the situation. It's a 2.2k I-rated driver. Stefan Verhofstadt, not saying that, you could be racing mainly in leagues and not really doing so much to sort of nurture your I rating, but regardless, it's going to be scary having a 7k I rating driver chasing you down over the final minutes of a race like this. 11 seconds. It's as you said before, Edward, it's not a lot of time, is it?
Yeah, and I can feel Stefan's pain because I'm pretty much almost exactly the same I rating as him. So the thought of, just from my point of view, of having a 7k I rating driver hounding me and chasing me down right to the end of a race like this, I would not be enjoying that one bit. I'll tell you that much for free. That would be one of my worst nightmares, I think, coming true. And just see, look at how much he's just attacking all of the corners. We said that the BMW looks a little bit stable and pedestrian and quite sort of steady. Not when Leandro's behind the wheel. He's wringing the neck of that thing, absolutely razzing it through the corners. But to be fair, it is looking very nice indeed. Now here we go. A little look up the inside from David Van Glaviker against Karakoulis. But still,
Karakoulis has been seeing his on. I think he's been seeing his lap times absolutely falling off here.
I have no idea what's been going on either, because like we were saying at the start of the race, he was really on it.
And that's strange because Van Glaviker at the moment is harrying him. And looks like they're really suffering to me, Edward. And I don't know what it is. It could be just at the end of the stint now and on worn tires. And this might be why some of the teams has opted to go for these shorter stints. Because the tire wear may be so tough that it doesn't really make sense to push into those final extra 10-15 minutes of the stint. In the grand scheme of things here. And that might be what we're seeing. What's happening for George Karakoulis here and the Schütz Motorsports machine. The 51 keeps on going. So it's going to be another lap here. And Glaviker. Glaviker's on a good pace, but he's been held up here, I think, as well.
Piraco eSports White with a very nice lap as well, actually. A 2 minute 0.112. The rate that they're catching up to Karakoulis, he might not just be losing out on one position. If Ben Thines can keep this pace up, he might be losing yet another to the 25 car, because this is really good pace at the moment. But
all of these cars, Edward, all of these three cars, 4th, 5th, and 6th, they're all going to have another pit stop. So it's also going to be a matter of, are any of them basically going to be able to come back or out ahead of Simpact and Sim Formula Europe that are so close to one another? It's going to be a very, very close finale here. Once we have those final pit stops out of the way, we're going to see just how it stands.
One more second gone in BLC3.
Look at the gap there. No, I thought it was the car ahead there, 6 seconds. That was Hans Blanker.
There's still a
the
second
racer
and one
car.
extra second gone. And even
Yeah.
though Stefan Verhofstadt, he's picking up the pace. He's done his personal best on that last lap. Leandro Verlet has still closed down a second in relation to Leandro Verlet. So
Van
it's
Glabek has
all
passed.
starting to come together.
Van Glabek has passed on Karakoulis, and Karakoulis wants to fight it. And this is... It's going to be playing into the hands of all the cars behind, basically.
Purple lap for Leandro Verlet. 8
Oh, my
tenths
word.
faster than Stefan Verhofstadt's last time around. And there could be around about, what, looking at the lap times on there, would you say 15 or so more laps?
18 minutes. It's going to
Yeah,
be...
oh, no, 18
not
minutes.
gonna
Oh, no,
be
that
15,
won't
it's
be.
going to be
that'd
9 laps or
that'd be
8
nine.
laps.
Yeah, I'm getting myself completely thrown off, yeah.
8-9 laps for them.
So he needs to basically average a second a lap gaining, but judging by the pace that he's displaying, that could still be within the realms of possibility and leave it down to the last lap for the BLC3 class lead. David Van Glabeke, after overtaking Karakoulis, has now come into the pits. We're going to watch Ben Thines now and see what pace he can do in trying to close up to Karakoulis, because looking at the last lap, Karakoulis obviously held up by the battling, 3 seconds slower
Whoa.
than Ben Thines. That is
brutal. That is
brutal.
Yeah. Oh, we've got Van Glabeke is back out, and he is ahead of Jonas Holm by a few seconds here. But on worn tires, and still 17 minutes to go. The gap is 6 seconds. And the Simpac car is going to be in a much better place on its tires, I think, at least. So this might not be over exactly. Might still be shots fired in these battles here. Ben Thane's only 4.4 seconds down. He would have gained 3 seconds on this last lap. That's impressive. I
we've
have
got
no
Hansi Coleman's
explanation.
closing up into a battle as well in BLC3, Hasse.
Oh, yeah.
Chris Van Gucht under pressure, I believe. This is for...
That's the other way around.
This is the other way around, isn't it? It's Chris Van Gucht closing in on the car ahead, which is Matthew Schroeder. This is for 4th place in BLC3. And both of these two drivers seem to be able to go until the end of the race. So it is yet another straight fight out on the circuit. Chris Van Gucht, the faster of the two drivers on the last lap around. Let's see what the time differential will be on this lap. Chris having to allow cars past. Also having to worry about his own fights, which is probably one of the hardest things to do in multi-class racing when you are in those slower classes relative to those around you, is having to manage the traffic to the best of your ability. You don't want to obviously hold up the cars around you, but you also don't want to lose time trying to let them through. So it's all about managing yourself and choosing to let drivers through, giving up a little bit of time here and there to not lose chunks of time in other places. Sometimes it is best just to give it up. As we watch a incident involving Kenneth Franken, and is it into this corner? Is it going to be an over-rotation of the rear? No, it's just the BMW understeering and wedging itself in the wall.
Oh, gets spat out. I've never seen that before. Someone just get spat out of the barriers, but it's some heavy damage though to the front. And they'll
But
be...
there you see, Hasta, if we have a look, if we have a look at that just again, the complete difference in incident that the BMW has compared to the Mercedes. The Mercedes we see over-rotating all of the time. It's quite oversteering. This one just understeers. There's no movement in the rear of the car whatsoever. It just plows straight on into the tyre barrier. And that's the difference between those two cars. It's just the way that they handle through those sort of higher speed corners, the tendency to oversteer for the Mercedes and the sheer amount of understeer you get in the BMW.
Edward, I'm thinking this could be George Karakoulis trying to fuel save. That might be why he's so slow, trying to fuel save to go to the end without that pit stop.
That'll have to be a lot of fuel saving he's going to have to do.
He's lost so much time. It's still 3 seconds a lap or so. So, yeah. 14 minutes of racing still to go here. There is Ward Mallatz, who's catching up to Jonas Holm at the moment, I think. Still so slightly. Oh, gets a good launch though there. The Dane extends just a tad on the back straight here. The 61 car of Van Glabeke is about 7 seconds up the road.
I've noticed the gap in BLC3 is now 8 seconds between Traxxas JWS and Arnage Competition White. So this is, again, coming down and down. It said it needs to be over a second a lap, and he's doing it. It's it's like 1.4 seconds last time around.
Gonna get held up here, the 100 though, by the number 12 BLC2 Porsche. So
carries momentum through the corner, so it wasn't a lot of time lost, but it is still a few tenths here and there.
He really got held out on the exit there, though. Also, Edward Karakoulis is getting caught up to here by Ben Thanes.
Ben does need to pit, you would imagine, one more time. Will that be the case for Karakoulis, though? That's the question.
That's what we're going to see from the very end of things. Everybody else, more or less, except for Ben Thanes and Karakoulis, we think, has done their final pit stops. Not quite sure about George Karakoulis, whether it's damage, whether it's fuel saving, and maybe
closing in on Jonas Holm as well.
Yeah, he's been hovering about that second for a bit of time here on Holm. Into the pits goes Ben Thanes, and alongside Stanley DeBow as well. I would think it is. Indeed, it is the Lexaro Racing 1 car.
Karakoulis breathes a sigh of relief there as he sees Ben Thanes coming into the pits after closing up on him so quickly over the past few laps. But I can hear another sigh of relief coming from the number 6 car. Stefan Verhofst has managed to regain a little bit of ground, extend his margin just that bit more against the Andrew Verla, because obviously that little bit of traffic seemed to aid him that extra bit more. So it seems like BLC3, the pendulum has swung back in favour of the JWS Traxxas Mercedes. On the exit, here we go. Ben Thanes closing in on the rear end of Jonas Holm. A battle on pit exit that the Simpact car manages to win out on, but we can see that Ben Thanes, he has been on a charge on the past few laps, and you can guarantee that he's going to try and continue that charge to get ahead of Jonas Holm right now. Ten minutes remain in the first round of the 2023 virtual Belcar season. It's been a season opener to remember, and it's not over yet, as we can see here. Ben Thanes trying to close down. He's going to have a little look here up the inside, late on the brakes. He's lunging for it. There's just a car's width. There's a bit of a touch on the apex. Ben Thanes trying to muscle his way through. They have contact on the exit. Ben Thanes clips the grass. He almost hits the wall. He manages somehow to keep it straight. No, he doesn't. He loops it around, almost hangs on, gets it up and running, doesn't lose out too much, but that was just unfortunate racing incident. I think of them just coming to blows a little bit too much. A tap of wheels onto the grass. Look at this. He almost saves it, Hassan.
Look at that pirouette is 10 out of 10 style points, just turns it around. Oh, he should have 9 out of 10 if he'd have kept it going just a point in the right direction and take off and smoke. It would have been even more beautiful. What a hold though.
Ward Mallatz gains throughout all of that as well. Upper position was behind the 25 car throughout all of this. Flashes his headlights as well, so I'm not sure what's going on there.
It's the
there might have been a bit of contact potential. Oh yeah, it was the traffic. There was a car going very slowly actually. The BMW of...
it's going to go into the wall. Oh,
it
just looked like it for a second there, I'm afraid. Let's just going to see here, because this the situation. This is Jonas Holm on Ben Thanes. And then Thanes tried to stand it.
Yeah, this was later on, wasn't it? And
yeah, it was. But I'm just seeing if we could get
Here we go.
sort of close enough. Here we go. Yeah, this is going to tell us a little bit more.
So on
with
board,
Ben
you can
Thanes.
see he comes from a little ways back, Hassett. Talk us through.
Yeah, man, he comes from way back. I don't think Jonas Hunt's really expecting it. He does all he can to give him the space. Jonas Hunt can't really go over the curb there on the inside. He gets a little bit of a nudge there. And Ben Thanes, that is a very, very good save not to hit the wall, because in that place it's so easy just to lose control and smash into it. But it's going to be that battle over for Firaco. I would expect, at least here with just 8 minutes left and about 8 seconds to close on Ward Mallets. Maybe just a bit of a look from the outside. I would really like to see just how that looked as they came through and how much contact there was. It looked like a very, very slight touch, minimal contact.
Yeah, I mean,
So
Ben
hard to
Thanes,
do.
he does it perfect. He comes from a long way back, but he doesn't overshoot it. He stops it on the apex, doesn't run wide into the path of Jonas Holm. So we'll have a look here. There seems to be okay around there, and then it's just... Yeah, I mean, there isn't really a lot of room for Jonas Holm to occupy on the inside line. If he goes over that curb, he gets spit out even further across the path. There's Leandro Verla. He has a moment, and
big
this was him
one.
trying to chase down Stefan Verhoef's properly.
That's gonna
pushing
be
a
it.
little bit too
That's gonna
much,
be
and I
it.
think that is game over for the race.
14
victory, but
seconds, that's
still.
everything they'd gained.
Yeah.
Edward lost in a jiffy there, and Stefan Verhoef
Exactly.
there.
But that
What's-
that doesn't put a dampener on the performance they've had so far here tonight, Haas. So they were really good to come back from adversity. Obviously, they would have liked the race victory, but still, they have been a real standout in that BLC3 class. To come back from being essentially stone dead last in class has been a really, really good effort from them.
Yeah, it has. No doubt about that.
Karakoulis still going strong, but losing yet more time. That last lap was a 2-minute 12, so he's
2
really
minutes
going slow.
12. And you're beginning to get into the territory where does that even make sense anymore? Look at Karakoulis, he's getting caught up to Van Glabeke here. And it's about 2.5 seconds. And it's 7 minutes left to race. And at this point, at this pace, Jonas Holm is gonna catch up to him. Ward Mallets is gonna catch up to him. Ben Thanes probably as well. So either there's been a major problem on this lap for George Karakoulis, which I cannot seem
He's
to
going so
see.
slowly.
He's
so
going
slowly.
so slowly. He's really trying to nurse home the car. Maybe to just realize they've really gambled on the wrong strategy here. They're gonna have no answer for the Sim Racing B by ROI management, driven by David Van Glabeke. He's gonna be on their tail now. And unless they can really, they've saved enough to hammer for it and say we're fighting for this 4th, 5th place. Well, let's see. If that's not the case, there's going to be no answer to it here. But they might just have been going this slowly to try and save all they could as this guy was catching up from behind. I'm not quite so sure about it. Here comes the send, Edward. Oh, and Karakoulis just cuts him off.
I was worried there that we were going to see a bit of an incident because Karakoulis, I thought, was going to come across an overlap there, but it seems that David Van Glabeke backed out and Karakoulis got the all clear call from his crew chief, his spotter, so decided to then take back the apex. Yeah, this is really strange. The just difference in pace that we've seen from Karakoulis. The 2 minutes 6.91, so he is certainly going slowly, trying to save the fuel, but with 5 minutes to go, I don't know if he's going to be able to save enough. It's going to be insane because Jonathan Poulet, he came in on lap 60 and we thought, oh, he's probably going to be fine to make it till the end of the race, but it could be close. George Karakoulis needs to save 4 more laps of fuel than Jonathan Poulet in Valkyrie X-Lope competition if they want to get through this without needing an extra pit stop, which I just don't think is possible. I really don't.
Parks it on the inside. There's a late jink. Oh, they're going to come together. Just a slight touch. Karakoulis going to get bubble buffed. And through goes David Van Glabeke.
I think, that was a bit cheeky from Karakoulis. He left the door wide open as Van Glabeke committed to going up the inside. Then Karakoulis sort of turns in a little bit too early. He's not aiming for the apex at all. He's aiming to try and cover him off. And I think it was just a little bit too late in his defense there. Left the door wide open, and Van Glavica very smartly took great advantage of that.
Now, Karakoulis is going to come with a huge scent there in Le Mans. Wow, that came from...
That was cheeky. That was really good. I mean, the door was wide open there, and Karakoulis decided to go for it. So all of a sudden, it goes one way and then flips back the other way. Both these two drivers refusing to give an inch, but they are slowing each other up massively. And now, Jonas Holm, he's 5 seconds back. And I mean, while there is only about 3 minutes remaining, Jonas Holm, he's closing quickly enough. He could make up that those 5 seconds in about 3 minutes.
2:02.9 for both of them. And a 2:00.5 for Jonas Holm. He is going to be there if they keep on fighting like this at the end of this. The Dane could see 5th, if not even 4th place on debut for Simpact. What a debut that would be.
Valkyrie X-Type competition and Christophe Herbigno in the Woodson VDS undercut car, both essentially trailing lap times, both in the 59s. Herbigno with the fastest lap of the race, trying to get a few extra points their way. I think you get extra a little bit for fastest lap of the race, so that is going to lessen the damage somewhat of losing out on the race victory for Herbigno and co.
And there's another one.
It's that corner again. It just seems to keep catching him out. He's pushing a little bit too hard onto the brakes. I mean, the BMW is difficult to stop as it is, being quite a big, beefy brick of a car. But still, even then, it's not quite working in his favour. Karakoulis hanging on by just his fingertips to this 4th position.
Oh, Chris van Hoek had, just as we looked before, came back and now he's gone off. In the braking zone down here, might have just tapped it onto the gravel. Oh no, just comes in too quickly and over-rotates it. Yeah, we've certainly seen that from the Mercedes a few times today. They seem to have picked up the pace, I think much to the dismay of the Simpact car, although they will still be in it for the battle here.
Hang on a minute, what's going on BLC2? Valkyrie X-Type nearly 2 seconds faster than RPM. That could be closing down before the end of the race as well, as we have a little bit of a moment there. Karakoulis and Van Glavica going wheel to wheel. Karakoulis hanging on around the outside. It's all action everywhere. We can't look away from any battles because they just keep erupting into just a crescendo. It's amazing stuff. Look at this at the inside. It's a late lunge, and he's covered off again by Karakoulis. We were thinking, oh, he's given up. He's not got enough pace. Then all of a sudden, he pulls it out from nowhere.
He just saved so much fuel that he could pick it up and actually fight with David van Glavica for the position here.
Final lap now, Hasser. I think Jonathan Poulet has just come across the line to get the white flag. Here we go. Jonathan Poulet, though, he will have, if it's the last lap for Jonathan Poulet, but it's not the last lap for Karakoulis and Van Glavica. They will need to do one more.
Glavica, almost Van Glavica, but still being shown the long way around by Karakoulis, and when he has the overspeed coming down towards the next one, and let's see, towards the right-hander here, it's going to be a close one. Oh, and he covers off the inside, but will he cover enough? Karakoulis looking to find the way through. David van Glavica cold as ice as he's defending his position hard. And George Karakoulis went very slowly there for a second.
Like a stone now, yeah. He's completely. He knows now he can't fight this one back, and he's back into fuel saving mode.
He's running out of fuel. He's going to lose that position to Jonas Holm immediately because he's running out of fuel, and the Dane is going to take 5th place away. Oh, and almost just shutting the door. That's not exactly sportsmanship. Like when you're running out of fuel, that's just my honest opinion on that one, Ed.
That was that was a little bit too beyond the limit there. But now all of a sudden, Ward Mallets is going to get through now.
He was going at Ward Mallets is going to come straight through. Karakoulis was going at a pedestrian pace, and he was trying to block off. And that was not...
And here we go, Hasser, as well. We need to focus on Jonathan Poulet. He's only got a little while to go now. He's onto this back straight. Just sunset to go. And the first race of this 2023 virtual Belcar season has gotten off to an absolute flyer. And it will be Valkyrie X-Type competition starting the season as they mean to go on. Jonathan Poulet rounding the final corner. An excellent strategic race by Valkyrie that sees them win the BLC 1 class in the first race of the season. Excellent stuff. That one less pit stop really worked in their favour. And then we will see if we can Christoph Herbigno come across the line. They did brilliantly to get pole position, fastest lap of the race right at the end as well, but unfortunately not the race victory. They just didn't quite save enough fuel. The strategy call just wasn't there.
But look at this end in BLC 2. I'm sorry to cut across.
No worries, go ahead.
We've got 1 second and less between the two leaders in BLC 2. And Sam Hammerstedt just closed in half a second. And he's going to come down towards, they're into the final sector. Just 6/10 between them now with 4 seconds last time we looked. And Sam Hammerstedt, Valkyrie eSports, could take this on the very line in the 877. They're coming up towards the checkered flag. Oh, and there's traffic in Le Mans. And it's going to hamper the exit of the 32. The 877 is going to come and fly in. Oh, my word. And just gauging it. He's got massive overspeed, but it might not be enough. And the 32. Oh, they're just going to hold on to it. No, here comes the sun. And I think it's going to be the win.
We've just seen. It will be on the final corner, on the final lap. Sam Hammerstedt has taken the race win.
Wow! Oh, that is incredible.
And the fastest lap to boot. Oh my word, what a final lap that must have been for Valkyrie Excite. The 877 from out of nowhere makes up a monstrous amount of time.
He's running out of fuel as well. He's just a second clear of Jonas Alm. Almost gets him to the line. What a finish. Ward Mallets gets 6th place there. Van Glabeke for Sim Racing PE, of course, in 4th. Ricardo Ferreira in a Nash competition got 3rd there in BLC 1 with all the excitement there. Renzo Erlenbrook for GT in 3rd in BLC 2. And then, of course, in BLC 3, Stefan Verhofstadt takes it across the line for Traxxas by JWS Classic Cars. That number 6 machine, flawless race from their side, taking the win ahead of the 100 Anage competition car driven by Leandro Verle. Just a little too much for him at the end. He comes into the pits because it's probably the end of the in-lap for him, which makes sense. I was just about to say, it looks a little bit weird. Edward May, what a final lap there in PLC 2, and Sam Hammerstedt hammering it home indeed there. Wow. that was quite some racing there.
Absolutely ridiculous. I want to have another look.
Let's have another look at that one.
Yeah, yes, we have to, because that was
so
absolutely sublime. There was just about cars with squeezes up on the inside. The amount of speed he takes into the corner while not running wide, he judges it to perfection. Lunges up the inside. That was the move of the season already. I will almost say that right away. It's only been round 1, but that has got to be one of the best moves we've ever seen in the virtual Belcar. And all of the seasons I've had the joy of commentating, that has been an absolutely insane dive up the inside on the last lap for the race victory in the final corner. It doesn't get any better than that, Hasser. It just doesn't. And I'm sure that Sam is just going to be grinning ear to ear for that one, because I'm doing exactly the same. That was mental.
That was absolutely insane. There was exactly 1 Porsche Cup car space there, and he just managed to squeeze his Porsche Cup car into that one Porsche Cup car space. That was a brilliant move to end a brilliant race indeed. Let's get some results on screen. We go here. We'll get them class by class. There we go. This is qualifying. This is not really what we want. There we go. About the race results. DLC 1, Edward May, take us away.
Thank you very much, Hasse. Yes, Valkyrie Excite competition, the 677, is the winner of the first round of the Virtual Belcar 2023 from Sebring. And it was a brilliant strategic victory by their hands to extend the stints, to go that little bit longer, to make it to the hour mark. Each time they had a plan and they executed it to perfection. Boots and VDS by Undercut Red just missing out. They were very quick over the course of a single lap over the course of the race as well, but just not enough fuel saving, which unfortunately was their undoing. Christophe Herbignot there taking the car across the line in second place. Arnage competition with a very exciting and eventful race from them. A few late incidents that saw them hardly have to settle for third position, but still a great podium to get their championship defense on the right track. Simracing.be finishing in fourth position with very, very dramatic fashion, obviously against George Karakoulis right at the late stages there. Secure fourth position ahead of Simpac Noises with the number 13 car ahead of Sim Formula Europe. Veraco Esports White also gaining positions at the end with Schutz Motorsport Esports running out of fuel, having to settle for an 8th place finish. Bravo by HeuerTime.com. They finish in 9th position ahead of JWS Motorsport. Lexara Racing 1 11th and RPM GT in 12th. Rider Racing Panda finishing 7 laps down and Simworld.be Fast finishing 10 laps down in 14th place. Hasse, why don't you take us away with the BLC 2 class results? If Hasse is there, I think he's muted right now. So I'll take us away with the BLC 2 and then you can... Oh, no, he's back. Okay.
I am back. I was indeed muted, but I quickly pressed the button and we're ready here. What a last lap finish. Not just last lap. Final corner overtake to take the win for Valkyrie Exile in the 877 ahead of RPM. What heartbreak it must have been for the 32 car as well. GTE Racing by Sinem completing the podium there in the 99 machine ahead of ART Sim Racing 1 and 2 in the 11 and 12, 4th and 5th for them. DBR ahead of DBRP 6th and 7th, and then Brab Alpha in 8th, followed by Team Vision 9th. Anage Competition Pink in 10th place there, and Brab Charlie by Actimo in 11th place. Over to Edward May again for the results in BLC 3.
Yes, thank you very much, Hasse. And it was a strong, dominant drive by Traxxas, by JWS Classic Cars. It says they finished 1 lap ahead of the competition, but in reality, it was around about 15 seconds to the good of the 100 car that had an amazing comeback drive from essentially last place all the way up into second. That was a brilliant drive, but left wondering what might have been had they not been involved in that first lap melee. Valkyrie X-Type GT4, the 777, finishing in third place. Didn't see much of them, to be honest, but that's usually a good thing in BLC 3. Flying under the radar, it gets you good results, as we've just seen here tonight. Simworld.be Rapid 114 car finishing in fourth place ahead of BE Sim Racing, and then Veraco Esports Black in sixth position. Dynamics Racing Pink, they had a very eventful race. They finished down in seventh ahead of Arnage Competition Light, with Desipit Racing in ninth position. BE Sim Racing round out the top 10, 2 laps down ahead of, as we can get this loading, for some reason I've got graphics all across my screen. There we go. Squadra Veloce by BSR 446 car in 11th place ahead of Dynamics Racing by Spectra Group in 12th place. So there we go, Hasse. That was a very eventful evening's worth of racing here from Sebring, and we get to do what is usually quite a nice fun time for us to get the inside scoop from the drivers in the post-race interviews. So why don't you take us away with the first one here tonight?
Yes, indeed, Edward. So we'll just find the interview button. Oh, it's right there. Go on interview. It doesn't say anything. Never mind. We'll get Jonathan Poulet in here. Jonathan, welcome, and congratulations to you and to the team. Very, very strong drive. Very, very clever. Very calm. Very, I'd say, strategic. And it must feel great to pull it off in that particular way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's always great to win, to be honest. But being the smartest and prepare the race that way and managing to execute the way you plan it, it's always a good feeling when you arrive at the end of the race and everything went just as planned for once.
And as we're just seeing the start there, turn one, a little bit of a moment for you guys as well as you came onto the grass there, almost having it all unravel at the very start there. So I'd say a good piece of luck on your side that it didn't go that way. How did you come about to actually make that work with the fuel saving, Jonathan? We saw so many other teams struggle with it.
Really, we were planning on being second or behind the car, so I guess being fourth at the start due to the incident wasn't that bad. And we were planning on saving, like we knew from the 12 hour that happened weeks ago that we need to do the hours basically. And we planned it from the beginning to do the hours and saving left, right, and center all around the track, and being in the train of draft helped you a lot. So yeah, we were just driving at the fuel target and we managed it for the 2 hours, and last in we were managing the race. So
Okay.
actually the person helped us a bit, I think so.
Might just have played out all to the better for you guys. Jonathan, what a brilliant drive on your part, on your team's part. Huge congratulations. Is there anyone you'd like to give a thanks or a shout out to before we let you go off and celebrate in style?
Actually, I would like to thank Hilario. That's the guy that helped us to do the strat for us for the pickup too. That come handy when you see the result at the end. So yeah, would like to thank him a lot for the job he do in the background.
Not a thanks we've heard too many times to the strategist, but a very nice one, and certainly in its place there. Again, Jonathan, big congratulations for us or from us on a perfect season start.
Thank you very much.
So that was Jonathan Poulet from Valkyrie X-Type Competition, our race winner in the 677 car. And we're going to go over to Edward May with another race winner. And I expect it's going to be an excited Swede joining us in. Edward, take us away.
Thank you very much. We're just waiting for Sam to join us. And he does now join us in the comms box. And that was, well, a dramatic finish to the race. So were you expecting to maybe be able to catch them right at the end? Or did you just think, right, we'll see what happens? Because that was absolutely amazing what you just pulled off there, mate.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we thought they were gonna take new tires as well, but then when we got out of the pits and saw the gap, we were like, well, that's too far. And then yeah, I started driving for my life as fast as I could, and didn't think about the tires or fuel or anything, and just hoped it would be enough, which it was. And then I didn't gain that much the first 10 laps, probably like half a second depending on traffic, and then we got some clean laps the last 20 or so laps, and then I just started hammering in laps, and it was just always a 10th quicker and a 10th quicker and a 10th quicker all the way to the end, and it was yeah, it came close.
Yeah, I mean, just talk us through that final lap, because that's all we want to really know about is just what was going on there. The last minute decision to go for the inside. I mean, just talk us through it all, like, that was absolutely brilliant. Myself and Hassan, we nearly exploded when we saw what you were doing there.
Yeah, my teammates told me the gap was like 2.9 or something, almost 3 seconds. And their tires were completely gone. So I just did another lap, no mistakes, as fast as I could. And then, yeah, it all came down to the last corner. And then I thought, well, I'm gonna go for it and brake late. If I brake too late, then there's so much runoff there, so they're just gonna cut back and take the win. But if I do it right, then I won't go too wide, and they can't do a switchback. And I succeeded.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you certainly did. I mean, that was probably one of the best overtakes I've seen in the virtual Belcar. The last corner, the last lap, right at the very end. That was just absolutely sublime. I mean, you had to be so committed up the inside, and you managed to make it stick. I mean, have you ever had a better race? I mean, I can't think of anyone that would be any better than that, to be honest, mate.
No, I can't say I have.
Hey, that was absolutely sublime, and really good job from you and all your teammates. Because I know it's not just a solo effort, but to be fair, mate, you're more than deserving of taking the plaudits for that. An excellent drive from yourself and all of you at Valkyrie to get the class wins, not just in BLC1 but also in BLC2. Congratulations, bud. We'll let you get off to celebrate with your teammates. But before we do, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out on the broadcast?
Yeah, I have to thank my team Valkyrie and of course my two teammates Roger and Joe for making this this entire race possible. It's a team effort, and our strategist Ilario for helping us with the strategy.
No worries, mate. Any hopes for the season going forward? Do you think you might be able to challenge for the title?
Yeah, I hope so. That's I think that's why we're here. Me and my teammates. I don't think we have anything else on our minds.
Excellent. We love to hear that, mate. Well, best of luck. We hope to see you fighting at the front for the remainder of the season. Take care, mate, and you have a good day. Celebrate with your teammates because you've earned it.
Thank you.
So there we go, Hassett. Sam Housestead coming in for a quick little chat. And now I think we do have one other driver to have a quick chat to. And I think it will be the last one of the evening. So take us away, Hassett.
We're gonna take two more because we're gonna have
There we go.
we're gonna have someone who wasn't quite a winner tonight, but very, very close indeed. It's indeed. I'm sorry. It's Jeremy Ponsonneau from the Boots and VDS by Undercut Red Car, the number 17 machine. Just coming up short in the end. Jeremy, your debut in the virtual Belcar series and second place in the end. Given the circumstances, are you happy with that, or slightly disappointed that you couldn't take the win here?
Hello guys. No, we are happy with the results. We were a bit surprised to take the pole, thanks to my teammate. Very, very good qualifying. But yeah, at the first we choose to have an aggressive strategy compared to the Valkyrie, with fuel saving and stuff like that. We clearly did not have the pace to do that. So we chose to make one stop at the end, but it was clearly good for us, I think. So yeah, we're happy with this result.
And yeah, indeed, also beating some very experienced and some very strong competition on the part of Anaj competition and the number one car, who did finish behind you by a fair margin, 45 seconds. So fairly safe in that matter as well. A flawless race in terms of no incidents and getting through. That must be satisfying as well.
Yeah, clearly. We didn't have any incident. We raced pretty safe, but yeah, a bit lucky, I guess, compared to Arnage. But with the support of Boots and VDS since the beginning of the year, it's our first major event with them. So yeah, happy with the first round.
And how does this leave you feeling looking at the rest of the championship? Do you think you're going to be able to compete with the top teams over the course of the season and fight for the overall title here?
I think yes. We will be strong for next round, I guess. And yeah, we were two to drive today, but we have two other drivers that have, I can say, the same pace than us. So yeah, excited for the rest of the season.
Well, indeed, and rightfully so. Strong performance today, Jeremy. Congratulations on second place from us here. Is there anyone you'd like to give a thanks or a shout out to before we let you off the hook here?
Thanks to my teammates. Good pace today, and exciting for the rest of the season. And of course, thanks to my team, all people. It's a teamwork result today. So thanks to everyone.
Well, congratulations again, Jeremy. Thank you so much for joining us for this post-race interview, and I hope to get you a chance to talk to you again after one of these other races.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
So that was indeed Jeremy Bonsodo, and we're going to end off with our final class winner. We've been saving some of the very best for last. It's going to be Edward May having a talk to Stefan Verhoeft.
Hello.
Welcome, Stefan. That was a excellent drive from you and your teammates to win the BLC3 class. I know it's not necessarily the easiest car to drive, the Mercedes. We saw numerous drivers struggling with oversteer here and there. How were you able to sort of keep this beast under control to get the race win?
Well, yeah, indeed, it was very difficult since the update a few days ago. I mean, I talked to some other competitors and they had the same issue with the BMW as well. So it was not just for us, but it was for all the cars, I imagine. So yeah, I think it was some training. We had to adjust the setup, and today I got some more laps in, and I was happy with that. And yeah, it felt good. I mean, we weren't on pole, but we were pretty close, and I was also happy with that. And then the start was a bit hectic, but yeah, we managed that. So I'm happy. Yeah.
Yeah, talk us through actually the beginning of the race, because you came out of it with a decent margin and you were able to build on that. But just how was it when you obviously go into turn 3 and all of a sudden it gets to a bit of a car park?
Yeah, well, I saw in front of me some Porsche Cups had a lockup or something, and then all of a sudden, like a flash in my mirror was somebody's coming from behind, but I didn't see, and all of a sudden he hit the 100 car, I think it was, and he hit me slightly as well at the nose, but we didn't have damage or nothing, and still could continue. So we got very lucky there. Too bad for the other competitors, of course, because I think it would be a very close fight, not only with Arnaz, of course, but I think also SimWorld.be. I think they had pretty good pace, but also got involved in that crash, and fortunately, of course. Yeah, so we got lucky there and managed to build a gap slowly, but yeah, and from there on out, it was like looking what Arnaz would do, because we know they would come back for sure, because I think they have a very strong field in their drivers, and yeah, we still managed to come out on top at the end, even though we had to do a splash and dash as well, because also since the update, we had a little bit more of a fuel consumption on the car as well, so it was really scary if we would make it or not. And in the last stint, I mean, yeah.
So that was the reason for your little sort of 9-second stop rather at the sort of 2-hour mark or so.
Yeah,
We
something
were
like
wondering
that.
where
Yeah.
you had like a 1-minute advantage at one stage. We were wondering where that went. So thank you for
Yeah.
clearing that up, mate. But how was it sort of when you're getting to the final stages of the race and you can see that Arnage was closing in behind you, sort of nearly a second a lap?
Yeah, pretty stressful. Yeah, I mean the traffic doesn't always help. So, but yeah, everybody has a traffic. But yeah, I'm still learning a lot around these guys. So I'm happy we could still hold the first position in the end. But it was really stressful for me. I mean, yeah, I'm not used to it. So I mean, not used to it of being in first position and like looking at the guys coming at you. So yeah, it was really nerve-wracking. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can only imagine being in that position. It's not comfortable when you've got drivers that have like 7 KO rating hounding you down, but you cope with the pressure brilliantly and actually managed to build the advantage later on. As I'm not sure if you're aware, but he was making a few mistakes in behind you, so you seem to have quite a comfortable race victory. But do you think you'll be having that same sort of comfort in the coming rounds, or do you expect a little bit more of a fight?
Yeah, I mean, I expected for this event to be like around third place, maybe at maximum if we got lucky in a few ways. But I was happy with the top 5, honestly, because of also the fuel consumption, like I told before. And yeah, I don't know, maybe we'll see in the future on other tracks what will happen there. Maybe they do another update, because we are really kind of put in a narrow window with our fuel consumption now, because it's very hard to get to the 1 hour mark with how it is now. So yeah, we will see how it develops and what brings the next event. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, we wish you all the very best, mate. But before we let you get off to celebrate with your teammates, is there anybody you would like to shout out here on the broadcast at Virtual Belcar?
Yeah, of course, my teammate, and that helped us build the setup as well a little bit. And our sponsor JWS Motorsport and JWS Classic Cars. So thanks to them. And thank you to you guys as well for bringing this event to the people. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, mate. Congratulations on your first win of the season, getting your championship off to the perfect start. Wishing you all the very best next time we see you out on track, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening.
No worries. So there we go, Hasse. That is, I think, the final driver we have a chance to talk to here tonight. But what an evening of racing it has been to kick off the 2023 season of the Virtual Belcar.
Absolutely beautiful. It's been what a night of racing. The 3 hours passed like 30 minutes, basically, I think, and kept us entertained to the very last second as well. I feel like we know the Virtual Belcar series. We're home, and it's been great. It's been so good being back. We're going to be back again on... I was just going to say something wrong. I was going to say May the 6th. That's not entirely true. It's on May the 5th. Friday, May the 5th. The 6 hours of Spa-Francorchamps. It's going to be the next time Ed and I are going to be taking to the airwaves. Of course, same place. I was about to say same time, but I'm not quite sure about that. Of course, do subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and get notified whenever we go live. And just for notices, we're going to be racing at Maunicourt on the 16th of June. We're going to go to Ossersleben on September 1st, then Mount Panorama on October 20th, and then, of course, the traditional season finale, the 24 Hours of Solder, on December 9th and 10th. A fair few months still to go, but as I said, May the 5th, do note it in your calendars, and I hope to see all of you there as well. Thank you so much for tuning in with Ed and myself tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure having you all along. A big thanks to all the sponsors of the Virtual Belcar series, and of course from Ed and I. A great thanks to the organizing team, Ronald, Andy, and everybody else making it happen. As I said, it's been an absolute pleasure having you all along, and I think, Edward, unless you have any closing statements, it's about that time.
Yes, it certainly is. But what an evening's worth of racing here at Sebring. It's the first time we've had these cars race around this venue. And to be fair, I think we might be coming back because it gave us a brilliant show. But yes, thank you very much, Hasse, from myself and the aforementioned wonderful Hasse Roma. It will be goodbye, take care, and stay safe.